Oh, we're here.
We're here. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. I'm not doing it anymore. Seinfeld is dead to me.
I know.
All right. Hello. Welcome. It is Monday night, Generational Change. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter, and it's been actually quite a long time, hasn't it? It has. Our professor hasn't been with us in quite some time. He unfortunately, there's been, there was the campaign, there's this little thing going on in the Middle East, there's all these little
There's this little thing. There's this sort of problem with potential nuclear destruction.
No, hold on. Believe me, it's great now because now I'm back and we're going to have a really great conversation because
I might have thought that prior to cabinet appointments, but now I have
listen,
let's not be ridiculous.
It's a super awesome cabinet appointment. And if anybody could tell me about a great cabinet appointment, it's this
Although
guy.
it takes a snake oil salesman to appoint a Fox News host to the cabinet. So I guess that works.
While the Lions and the Vikings are getting all the kudos right now, the Packers are slowly creeping up behind. So leave it to the comeback kids in the great city of Green Bay, Wisconsin, even though it's a red city.
It's a red state.
It's a red. Well, yeah, it's a swing state.
Look, Harvey's freaking out.
It's
all
swing
right.
state.
I'm just baiting him. I'm
red
just baiting
city,
him.
Swing
I'm
state.
just baiting him.
You know him, you love him, professor at the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay. Harvey Kaye, welcome back to Generational Change.
Thank you, but I may have to leave because this is a blue city.
Oh, how dare!
No, but listen,
So
I did a really big rally in Green Bay. It was really great, and they all love me there. Didn't you see the people there? Biggest crowd, most incredible crowd.
So if it's a blue city, you must be building a cop city nearby then.
Seriously, obviously, I didn't look closely at the Wisconsin returns. Yeah, Trump won the presidential vote, but the state actually was moving back towards the Democrats. Actually, the Democrats, I think, took 10 seats in the state legislature after all the Walker years. Finally, they're coming back.
Well, listen,
three of the four state assembly people in this area took their seats. 3 of the 4 seats were turned Democratic now, and now it's tough. We've had this apportionment that really screwed Democrats. So by the way, it doesn't change the fact that Trump won the state, but it is interesting that so many Democrats or so many purple people could vote for Trump, but at the same time vote for Democrats.
Right. No, well, here's the thing. Right. I mean, people didn't particularly ever like Kamala in the first place. I mean, if you recall when she ran, it wasn't like she was popular. She didn't have anything. And so she's just not particularly likable. And it's not like right now that everything's in such a good way. So it makes sense that while they may not at the state level, especially given your governor and your state house, they want to see the proper things done there. They recognize that maybe Kamala is not with that.
Yeah, we have a Democratic governor, by the way.
Yeah.
Now.
No, we've had a Democratic governor for several years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
This isn't the Scott Walker conundrum.
No.
That was before.
They have a grip on the legislature, which will be loosened a bit. And then in 2026, I can imagine Democrats taking at least one house of the 2. But on this question of Kamala, it was always amazing to consider that she was the primary loser back in 2020, right? I mean,
she didn't even get to the primary.
Yeah,
right. What I meant, sorry, I didn't mean capital P primary.
Right.
She was like the foremost. She was the foremost loser in 2020, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Okay? And she didn't enhance her credentials at all by on the way to that debacle for herself. She backed off of everything that like Medicare for all.
I don't think she was ever really with that. I think the only time she ever intimated those thoughts were one, when it was safe, popular, and there was no threat of it actually happening.
I think the bigger
I honestly don't think we have any clue as to what her real values are and what she stands for. I think we have no idea.
I think one of the better aspects of
Believe it or not,
Will-
Jen, I definitely do agree with you. I'm not.
Yeah.
I mean, let me make that clear. I'm not
Yeah,
arguing.
no, I know you don't like her.
I was astonished. I was even astonished that Biden chose her to begin with.
That was the only way they could get her in.
That's all about money and power, my
They
friend.
needed to get her in, and when they realized in 20 that she couldn't do it on her own because she was so
Who's they that wanted to get her in?
go with, well, who owns
Wall
the
Street and
Democratic
Wall
Party?
Street and Silicon Valley.
I think of it as
You're going to tell me that Wall Street was worried about
no.
all the
I
other
think
Democrats?
I
Come
think
on.
it's a Clinton. I think it's a Clinton decision. I think that Kamala was anointed by her back in 2017. I think that that was her chosen person. And I think that Hillary owns the party and is somebody, and I've said this before, this is just basic to me, right? Like as a parent, right? The kids who are still on the payroll, you're the boss of them because they're on the payroll. That's how it works. The person who runs the payroll is who's in charge. And so I think that whoever is at the top of the Democratic Party, and again, I think financially that gets tied to the Clinton Foundation, but you know, and that was always their chosen person. And there was no other way to get her in than on his coattails in 20.
So, which would, let's suppose your theory is
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
That would at least help me understand why, not long before she was chosen, Jill Biden had spoken to some women's group and made it, as my wife reported to me, she wasn't there or anything like that, but my wife read this, that Jill Biden has said, it will not be Kamala after what she did to my husband on the debate stage.
Yeah.
Okay. And
but again, this is that's why like
was
Joe
the
didn't like
debate.
her. I wouldn't be surprised if he voted for Trump. He never liked her. She totally embarrassed him. And then what happened is the person with the money, the mommy, basically came in and said, nah, that's who we're putting in. And so that's how, and then she called Obama and said, Barry, I need you to get all of your little people in line and get behind Joe. Okay. So they all need to drop in and get behind Joe. This is how we're going to do this. And then everybody just fell in line. That's my theory. And it's just based on the person with the money is the boss. It really is like an Occam's razor thought to me.
On a lighter note, the state of Wisconsin did unravel the horrific gerrymandering that your state has been stuck with for quite some time.
Oh, exactly. That's why the Democrats were able to perform that much better than they have in the past.
And I've said before to you, as I say to you know, obviously your fellow Wisconsinite and guest on the show on last week, John Nichols, what I've always maintained is that if there's any semblance of any element of the old guard Democratic Party, the FDR, JFK Democratic Party, it's in the upper Midwest. That's the only part of the entire country that I think there's even some semblance of it that still exists. And that's why you did have somebody like, even though I think Tim Walz obviously was in over his head and, you know, there's a lot of issues that I had with him, the things that he fought for as the governor of Minnesota, a number of those issues I thought were really good.
Yeah, he had some decent stuff.
And that is the type of stuff that never really got talked about. Because
it was fascinating to me to see how they told him to not say anything in the debate with Vance.
Yeah,
I mean, he literally, what he did in that debate was an embarrassment. Waltz. It wasn't the look on his face, like, why the fuck what am I doing here? That kind of stuff. Yeah. And it's clear that the Harris vibes people said to him, Don't argue. Just be a nice guy. Prove Minnesota nice works. Because otherwise, I think he would have found clever ways of nailing Vance.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think that they brought in Waltz and then basically like neutered him.
Yeah, that's it. Well, exactly. That's
yeah,
what
like,
I mean.
I don't
exactly.
know, you know, and I don't know if that was what they wanted to do, or they brought him in and then saw something where they're like, oh no, we can't have this.
Yeah, and one of the things that they did,
I don't know, like what happened first.
One of the things that they did with Waltz that I thought was basically hanging him out to dry was when they had him, of all people, go to Alex Soros's palatial whatever you want to call it a mansion, but it's this huge apartment building overlooking Central Park West, and of course it's this huge fundraising initiative, and it's like,
You mean the Dakota?
I think so. I
See
think
in
that's
the
where,
Dakota? Yeah, it sounds
I
like
think
it.
it's where he lives.
See, that's what you.
And so, well, again, Oprah has a place in there and all that stuff. And again, at the end of the day, that is exactly what the Democratic Party is not supposed to be. And so when you put the one person who is sort of visible in this moment of, I'm trying to be more like the Democratic Party was back in the day, not the Democratic Party that is right now.
Okay,
Like,
this is funny.
we'll teach. We'll show you. We'll show you how this works.
That's funny, Joe Manchin. And
when you don't really have a say, when you're basically being hung out to dry, what do you expect? And this is the hard lesson that's being learned right now. And I think that this is a great transition because, as I'm sure you've heard, as we have obviously heard, and not really a surprise, the DNC basically cut everybody out. Basically, everybody's fired. And not only are they fired, but they're not getting anything.
You're fired.
No, you're fired. You're all fired. No, I came in there and I said, you're all fired.
But did they not? But did they not fire the person at the top? See, this is what I don't understand.
This is also how it's a very incestuous world that the top of the Democratic Party actually revolves in. The son of one of the richest men in the world and one of the most, with all due respect, one of the biggest political manipulators out there in George Soros, his son is married to Hillary Clinton's number one. Like, I mean,
it's really.
Whoa. Wait a second. I have obviously been oblivious. What? Hillary's daughter is married to
no. George Soros's son
is
married to Huma Abedin, who was basically Hillary Clinton's right.
It's her main assistant. Her
forever.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay.
I wasn't meaning literally. I just meant like it's very it's incestuous seeming, even though I know it isn't technically.
Yes.
And so I'll go back then to the thing you guys have heard me say before, and that is the only thing that can rescue both the Democratic Party and American democratic life, the way things are going, has got to be the possibility of a labor movement that's built around the likes of Fain.
Yes, correct.
Yes. Yeah. And not necessarily based on everybody's personal feelings and their social stuff. Right. Like, I feel like those are things that we'll have an easier time hammering out once we deal with the class war that we've been suffering with. Right. Like, I like, let's deal with that. And then we can further divide into little sub happy groups once we've taken down, Capitol. Right.
Boy, you have a very lofty goal there, young lady. I'm
just saying, like, we don't need all the little, this is one of the bigger problems that
that could happen, by the way, and we can make all of that happen if we petition Hillary, according to your thing.
Well, except for Hillary has zero fucks to give about anybody but Hillary.
Of course.
And and if you want to know where it really all the way goes back to, it's my congresswoman who ran the DNC into the ground to the point where the Clinton Foundation had to bail them out. So
wait a second. So it's possible. Sorry, I'm just going off the wall here.
No, why do you think Debbie?
It's possible that Hillary will save the Democratic Party from Rahm Emanuel.
Oh yeah, no, that's not happening.
Yeah, okay. Show him the picture.
So on election night, you may not have seen this, but
I haven't. Can I just tell you, I literally did not watch election night.
This is just a still photo that was taken
for your own physical and mental health. It's probably better that you.
Yeah,
that's exactly why I didn't.
We were live. I didn't watch it.
But this is why so many conspiracies end up becoming truth, because of all the people that Kamala would sit side by side with on election night.
This is election night.
This is who she's sitting with.
When she couldn't be bothered. She couldn't be bothered to go and talk to her people. Okay, until the next morning.
God,
she couldn't be bothered to go and talk to her people. Now, this for me was fascinating because for most of the time, I've been saying that I think it's like Scooby-Doo, like you peel off Kamala's mask and Hillary's under there. So I always kept saying, like, do we ever see them at the same place at the same time? And so this proved that my theory is only figurative.
I'm going to take a picture. Whoa, go back. I got to get a picture of that one.
Okay. So now I know that my theory is figurative and not literal.
Thank
Okay.
you. That's
But
great.
literal would have been, can you imagine? If it weren't for those pesky kids, I would have gotten away with it too.
Well, that's what Hillary was thinking, but
You know
it's
what?
so
Can I just tell you? This is
Yeah.
a total sidebar, but playing on what you said. Yeah, I sent you some stuff today. I don't know if you had a chance.
Yeah, I saw the articles. Yeah.
So I don't know if you know that I've been working with the Letter Hack producing these. We're
he's
producing
great.
comic, and I just imagine us. I would tell Letter Hack, do us a favor. I actually he does his own show tonight. Otherwise, I was going to say to him, I'm going to bring him on with me.
Absolutely. He can always come on.
absolutely.
Yeah, next time I think we'll definitely, because tomorrow he and I are going to definitely lay out another one tomorrow. But what I was saying is that would be great to have him cartoon it exactly what you just said. I'm going to tell him. I'm going to mention it to him tomorrow.
Because
That would be great.
and again, these are things like you can never prove these things. But again, to me, it really is a most logical, rational thing is that the person who's financially in charge gets to make big decisions.
You can also tell at that point of the night when they're sitting together is
both their
basically
faces.
like,
And by the way, I highly recommend
Yeah.
doing a close up on their faces. The look of just on Hillary's face, both of them. It's just it's priceless.
knowing that he's now got a second term, and the fact that she's just such a hateful person. It's so obvious that it's about me. It's about my time and my turn.
I was cheated.
And
I was cheated.
And it's never
That's it.
about it's never about, well, look, the American people are suffering right now, and this is what it's about, and this is why things are so bad. And if anybody got screwed,
Well, wait, she can relate to that. She's suffering.
And you know what? Good. I want
But
her to stew in that.
But that's what made Bernie. But that's what made Bernie so special, is that for all of his flaws and the things that he's done over the last several years, everyone would agree Bernie doesn't think about himself. He only thinks about other people's suffering. Like, that's the only thing that gets him up.
Yeah, he doesn't have he's not an ego
He's like,
person.
well, it's not about me. It's about the American people.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely there have been disappointing things, but I think Bernie is a decent human being. I do.
Yeah, I think you're right. His personality flaw may well be he's got his stubbornness is clear, but it's a stubbornness that's comes second to what you're talking about. His not me, us, and humanity.
Yeah, I think that he's lived a life and walked a walk that you can see what he's done. And I think that when you look at someone like Hillary, it's not that.
And this is also why, Harvey, which I think is very important, especially being a professor, not in a bougie, West Coast or Northeast Coast city. You're a professor in the upper Midwest. You're a professor in a place where people work with their hands for a living. You're a professor in a state that has always had a very progressive and libertarian streak. You had Joe McCarthy, just as you had Mr. Follett. You've had these very interesting leaders over the years. And what makes it so much more interesting is that you're trying to hold on to the semblance of what the Democratic Party is supposed to be. But we've pointed out time and again is that the National Democratic Party is a colossal failure of epic proportions. And that is why this just happened, which is a serious problem. A betrayal of party values.
Wait, I just want to say something. Harvey, so when you sent me those texts, you sent it to me and John. Who's John?
What? Old John.
Oh, you still have him. You have to not send stuff in that text thread. Only send me.
Hold on. I couldn't. My problem was I didn't know which number was really your number.
All right. Well, you got me.
The 908 number is my number, just so you know.
And I'm
Hold on. Well, actually, Peter, I kept thinking we can talk about. Actually, I would like to clear this up. If not now, then tomorrow.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying because we don't want to be messaging him.
No,
I don't even know who Old John is. So.
Well, if I think it's who it is.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Hold.
So it was our producer.
Yeah.
It was our original.
Well, that sucks. Because Peter, I was trying to get to you and Jen.
Yeah. All right. I'll message you in a thread with both of us.
Okay. So, and make it clear which is which so I can send it.
Yes, I will.
So a lot of the aftermath, the pull back the curtain and see what was really there. And of course, there will always be these juicy stories about things that go on. That's not what we cover here. We cover the brass tacks, the things that really matter. a betrayal of party values. DNC staff union statement on staff layoffs. The DNC staff union released the following statement on the news that permanent DNC staff have been laid off with 1 day's notice and no severance.
How labor friendly? How labor friendly is that?
Right, but you know what? Sorry, this is like 50 years too late.
Yeah.
Well, yes, but
I
then
mean, these people made their living doing exactly that shit. I mean,
I'm not opposed to people being let go. You're right, that needed to happen, but you don't get to say you're a party of working people in labor and give people a day's notice and no severance.
And the other problem, Harvey, which I'm sure you've been paying close attention to, which should not surprise anybody, and of course, brain trust David Axelrod, who got it right one time in a big way, but that's all it takes, says that the person that should be the next DNC chair is Rahm Emanuel.
As I just said a little while ago.
Yeah, because that makes total. Listen, if you want to push millions more out of the party, you're doing a great job.
Isn't he like, he's a whack job?
He's a jerk off.
Which one? Axelrod or Rahm?
No.
Well,
I'm talking
Axelrod's
Axelrod's a jerk off. I think Rahm Emanuel is a nut job.
Well, there are all those things.
Like, and I think he's got anger management issues. I think he's violent. Like, I don't know. I think he's like a wackadoo.
Well, he's an elitist of the worst kind.
Not
and
a
I
fan.
can still remember, and I know you remember, when Bernie was campaigning. This is why I'm still convinced that the shenanigans that went on in the 2016 primary, it could never not be rehashed enough. And I can still remember Bernie campaigning in Chicago saying, I would never take the endorsement from that Mayor Rahm Emanuel. He's a terrible. It's like, that was the Bernie that was just so electrifying. And it was so amazing to see somebody finally tell the Democratic Party to their face who they really were. And
now I understand why. Now I understand why I don't like him and why I think he's a whack job.
What's that? Oh, well, yeah, well, let's,
okay.
That's a whole.
Hey, what did you uncover that I didn't see?
Well, it's probably just common knowledge. It's on his Wikipedia page. So he's Israeli, and his father was a member of the Irgun.
So what I think that
okay. Do you know what that is? The
yes,
Irgun?
I do. Sure I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what that should tell us, which I think is pretty obvious because we've been seeing the riffraff going on social media, is that the Democratic Party is going to do everything it can because it knows that AIPAC, which donates more to Democrats than Republicans, has been basically a safe haven for them regarding campaign finance. And so by putting somebody like Emanuel in charge of the DNC, it would almost ensure that AIPAC will stay with the Democratic establishment and do as one would suspect that they would. But let's cover what this is about. The DNC is facing the fallout of callous and short-sighted mismanagement by senior leadership. Again, not surprising.
I'm pretty sure that appointing Israeli right now to be the chair of the DNC would be the end of them.
Well,
actually,
again, they are willing to go down with the ship.
I really think that will be the end of them.
Starting Wednesday night, permanent employees were notified of their term. What is with the term permanent employees? That's really weird.
As opposed to temporary employees.
I guess. Effective Friday with no severance pay. DNC leadership.
Because otherwise they're just cyclical campaign people. So they're talking about their permanent staff. Well, they're talking about the difference between people that you bring on like we did for running a campaign versus their permanent people. That's why. Sorry.
DNC leadership refuses to disclose to the DNC staff union the full extent of these layoffs and whether additional cuts are planned. These cuts go far beyond typical campaign turnover and impact employees who were previously told their positions would be retained after the election. Chair Jamie Harrison and Executive Director Sam Cornell refuse to address their staff face-to-face, shocking, and have offered no explanation for how these cuts were decided.
So cowardly.
Record-breaking fundraising, $1 billion, $20 million.
And yet they're in the hole.
The DNC failed to provide any financial support to those who have tirelessly served the Democratic Party and its mission. Unlike the Harris-Walz campaign, which provided 3 weeks of 3 weeks. So
that's really really nice for a 3-month campaign.
I'm just saying,
that's actually really
nice.
Yeah,
that absolutely. Yeah,
I agree with that. For 3 months, I agree with that.
Yeah.
The DNC senior leadership has chosen to leave loyal staff scrambling to cover rent, medical expenses, and childcare costs. You mean like the child tax credit that's gone, no single-payer health care, and the fact that rent is completely out of control in this country? You know, the little things that matter.
This is terrible.
Among those now facing financial uncertainty are workers expecting new children and single parents who have dedicated their lives to our party. Scores of experienced staff, some of who have been here as many as 4 decades. That's
well, there you go, man. There you go. 4 decades in it. Okay.
What do you have to show for it? You know, we've said before, and you would probably agree, the big difference between the DNC and the RNC and the consultant class and the 2 major parties, in the Republican Party, you actually have to win races
to stay around.
In the Democratic Party, you could be a 10-time loser and they'll keep hiring you. There's no accountability.
But that sentence is interesting. So read that. Keep reading that.
The individuals whose decisions throughout the campaign created.
No. You skipped this sentence.
Scores of experienced. Okay.
This is important.
Will see their institutional knowledge vanish overnight due to their rushed mass
Maybe
layoffs.
that's the point. Maybe it's that institutional knowledge that we don't need anymore. Maybe that's the point. I actually appreciate that. All of this is fair. It's just that they didn't give them notice.
That's true.
Truthfully, you're allowed to fire people if it's not working for you.
The individuals whose decisions throughout the campaign created the situation remain on payroll, while these workers are left with no. Okay, well then there you go. So it gets it's a, you know, Carlin said it's a big club and we ain't in it. Well, it's a small club and you're not invited.
I don't want to be invited.
That's kind of what it comes down to.
I have to ask.
Yes.
Can you just tell me? Go back to the top. Who issued this news?
The DNC. It's not a direct person.
The staff union.
DNC staff union. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, it would have been nice if they told us what the party's values are.
They're getting to it.
The DNC staff is proud of the values that our party stands for. We want to make it clear, however, that the principles we champion on the national stage have been disregarded in our own workplace. The process of regaining the trust of the American people must start with living our party's values. We call on leadership to align the DNC's actions with our principles by 1, offering severance to every permanent employee who was laid off, and 2, addressing your staff honestly and transparently. Only then can we begin to move forward as a party.
Yeah, but just as a point of information. So what are the values of the party?
Well, that is this, amorphic, constantly flowing thing that somehow involves Israel. They don't seem to have anything else.
Stop. Don't editorialize for a moment.
Okay.
I'd like to know what they imagined the values of the party.
I don't know. Probably whatever's on their party page, their platform, whatever they have in there regarding labor.
The problem that we're dealing with right now is that the party can't marry corporate special interests with working class interests.
I don't think they know.
No, I get that. I mean, I could give you a whole lecture on that.
I don't think they know. What their issue. Like, I don't think that, like, the people that wrote that are upset about losing permanent jobs, and they have, whatever. I bet if you were to ask them, what are those principles? What does this party stand for? I don't know that they'd be able to tell you, because I don't know that they even know. Like, this is not stuff the Democrats have talked about.
That is look. You ask people. If you ask, this is why the Republicans were able to win, because nobody knows what the Democratic Party's values are, other than what Republicans have, if you like, painted them as.
Yeah. Well, Democrats don't put out anything to counter that narrative.
Well, look, for all of the vibes out of the convention, we haven't talked in a while, have we?
No.
Shit, we should have talked to you after the convention. I was filled with good ideas or bad ideas. No, I mean, that convention that everyone thought was so wonderful.
I didn't think that.
I couldn't figure out what they were talking about. Undeniably, there was a great deal of energy, enthusiasm, and hope, but I wasn't sure what they came out of that convention with.
Joy. I was focused more on what was going on outside and the complete, juxtaposition between the people outside and the people inside talking about joy, when what was going on outside was going on. To me, that speaks a lot about where this party is right now.
Yeah. Well, I spoke at the pre-convention Progressive Central event.
Right.
Okay. About the Economic Bill of Rights. And, and honestly, I think the Democrats could have won off of what could have come out of the pre-convention materials. I mean, The enthusiasm for the Economic Bill of Rights was astounding. In
I'm
fact,
sure.
But I will tell you what's most upsetting, and this is also reflective. Some of the leading figures in the, in quotes, progressive caucus were there. Okay, were there, and yet coming out of it, not a one of them made any kind of statements regarding something like an Economic Bill of Rights.
No.
Okay, I mean, it's just that. I mean,
what does that tell you?
It tells me that I vote for an empty shell.
They're not interested in doing those things. They're just not.
When you take hundreds of millions of dollars from the very people that do not want single-payer health care, that do not want a living wage, that do not want a clean energy economy, that do not want to end endless war, therein lies the rub. And that is why this marriage within the two-party system can't work. We'll see how much of a rope the very working class centric Republican Party has now become if Trump doesn't deliver anything, because he probably won't, most likely. And
he'll deliver some things.
Oh, I'm going to deliver, believe me. And
A
so
nightmare.
at the end of the day, therein is again the other problem. So at what point do we address the elephant or the donkey in the room, which is exactly why we don't get these things? There's a reason why something as simple as the micromanagement of a candidate that I have never seen at such a level. She was so terrible. And the idea that you couldn't go on the Joe Rogan podcast.
I thought her campaign was flawless.
That was,
it was flawless.
How much were you paid to say that line? And
not
to
as
me,
much as Joy Reid.
Harvey, that to me speaks to the big divide that's happening now. And I covered this last night in a subject about the impact that Bernie going on Rogan in 20 had. And at the time, his podcast was already the biggest, but it obviously blew up in a significant way over the past few years. But even then, he got over 10 million views. And then Rogan comes out and says, I'm going to vote for Bernie. And it's like, you got to seize that moment. And instead, not only did they not seize that moment, they did everything they could to destroy Bernie and Rogan at the same time. And now over the weekend, Trump shows up at that UFC event in Madison Square Garden and walks right up to Rogan and they embrace it. I'm thinking that could have been Bernie and Rogan. But nope, couldn't have that because that would require actually flipping over the table.
And that is why Kamala didn't win, because she didn't go on Joe Rogan.
Well, I wouldn't say that's the reason. I'm not sure.
But
she didn't win because, look, she didn't win because she's not a winner.
No.
I mean,
and nor
fundamentally,
that's nobody picked her. Nobody picked her. At least with Trump, people voted for him in a primary. They had a primary. They voted for him. I don't like him. Kamala was anointed. Like, this is the fact that they just are like, oh, people don't really care about the primaries, do they? Yeah, we do.
Well, what do you see as being the future right now? Because before anybody even starts, you don't even need to think who the Democrats are going to put up in 2028. So let's just get that out of the way. We already know that Buttigieg is going to run for governor of Michigan. That's obviously going to happen.
Which is so funny.
What? What did you
I know. I don't understand it either.
Yeah,
he's not from Michigan. He's from Indiana.
He's he's a carpetbagger, but he's living in Michigan now, and he's been living there ever since 2020.
Well, he's another loser. He can't win Michigan. That
also Team Hillary, interestingly.
Very much so.
It was him and Kamala were their two horses that year.
Never forget remember, he was a hired gun. They put $25 million behind him just in Iowa against Bernie Sanders. And it's amazing what all that corporate money and the cover of Time magazine with Chase and all of that can do.
And he was just so good as transportation secretary.
So good.
Oh, yeah.
So good.
Where's that high-speed rail, by the way?
No, how about the babies that his attitude was let them drink water, essentially, like Marie Antoinette, because they couldn't, because of that shortage with the formula and the whole transit problem. And he was like, well, we do live in a capitalist society.
Southwest Airlines, the rail disaster in Southeastern Ohio. We can count the ways if they put him forward. I don't even know who they are anymore.
The same people. The same people.
Somebody like Alex Soros. I mean, there are certain people, it's like with the GOP, for example, we know who runs the Israel lobby, who is the top person, or the Democratic Party as well, but more so because of it's the party that person supports. And that, of course, is Miriam Adelson. Like, if you want to know who the face of the conservative Israel lobby is, it's Miriam Adelson. Like that's a given. there are other people that are in the mix that if you point to them and say, is that person part of the problem? Yes, there are certain people that you know, but it's like the invisible hand of the government. There are
I don't think
people
it's
that
so invisible.
you don't even know. Like there's a billionaire in Illinois that no one knew about that was spending tens of millions of dollars on anti-abortion ads
Right,
in Ohio.
for Ohio.
When they had the ballot initiative, no one knew who the hell this guy was. He was just some rich, and he was a Nepo baby, another Nepo baby. Old money, inherited it, conservative.
The people who donate to the campaigns decide. They get to decide.
And very often they're very good about protecting their identity. That's why when somebody like Musk comes out and just outright supports Trump, it's like, yeah, well, the Wizard of Oz has stepped out from behind the curtain. Now you can see who one of the people are. There are several of them. That just happens.
The entertainment is coming, because I cannot imagine the Trump Musk thing will continue.
No, I don't. My thought is we should run. And again, I'm bad with these numbers things and the whole thing about spreads and points and all that. But there needs to be some sort of game with the cabinet members and money based on who lasts the longest, because my bet is not one of those people will make it past 1 year. I'm just talking of who gets confirmed, right? Like of whoever gets confirmed, my projection is not a single one of those people will be around longer than 1 year.
Well, hey, listen, actually, you get Marco Rubio.
That would be interesting. And one variation of the game might well be who goes first.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Like, how do we do that? And sort of like a fan, again, I'm terrible. I'm not a math person. So, but I don't know how you calculate odds, but I think that would be an interesting
It's kind of I mean, listen, there's some
people. Las Vegas will surely come out with the odds.
Well, first of all,
market.
He lives to fire people. Like that's one of his most favorite things. That is one of his most favorite things to do in the world. So the only thing you are assured of when he hires you is that he's going to fire you.
Maybe.
Who has he not fired?
I mean, there are certain people, but
who made it through the entire campaign? What's her name? Did DeVos she make it all the way through his term?
I think she may have, but Betsy DeVos is an oligarch. She's a billionaire. So
right.
She bought that seat.
Right.
Yeah, that's like above the fray. But I would have to. You're right. I would have to look into it. But yeah,
he's too fickle. Nobody makes it. And the truth, even if it was Kamala, quite honestly, according to what I hear, she's had like 90+% turnover in her office as vice president, which is like insanely high even for that. So these people don't make it. That's why I tell them, like, don't worry about these appointments. None of them are going to make it.
Yeah, I'm wondering, for example, when the likes of the fast food industry are going to tell Trump, get rid of this guy Kennedy.
Well, or they take care of him.
I mean, I'd be happy if he never made it into the cabinet, period. I think the guys, you want to talk about wackos.
I know.
You and
if you try to deny it, then I'll see you next time.
We can beg to disagree. I'm new. I don't care one way or the other. But again, I don't think anybody's going to be there that long. And to me, hands down, the scariest person. Actually, you know what? Here, I'm gonna do something because I specifically have this here for said very occasion.
Oh, the Shady Bunch.
The Shady Bunch. So yeah. So to me, and this isn't everybody. It's only the people that could fit in
this
the
guy
bunch.
right here.
That's him.
Help me out. Help me out.
That to me is the scariest person, probably. And he looks it. Maybe period. He looks like.
Just review their names. Review their names.
Okay, so I don't know all of them.
I
know
do.
This is your border czar right here.
That's the border czar.
I forget his name. This is Elon and Vivek. This is Chris.
Whoa. Sorry. Start in the upper left-hand corner.
That is Zeldin, and he's the environmental.
The Legend of Zeldin.
He is I think it's Lee Zeldin.
Lee Zeldin. That's his name.
And he's like, they're putting him in charge of the EPA, and he's like a fossil fuel person.
There's worse people.
Okay, you're right. And then who's the upper middle?
Let's put it this way. He's not as bad as Rex Tillerson, but
the upper middle is Elise Stefanik.
She's
that is from New York State. I never actually knew what she looked like. Okay.
She'll be the first to get knocked off.
What's she getting? What are they giving her?
She is the ambassador to the UN, which is really, it's a meaningless
She's the ambassador to the UN?
Oh, yes.
Okay. And upper right-hand corner?
That is the guy from Fox News.
Oh, who's the...
Hegseth. Hegseth.
That's not him.
That's not. Who is
No,
that then?
I don't know who that is.
Are you sure?
I am sure.
Okay, then who is that?
He looks familiar, but I can't place the name right now. So that's like the one guy that I didn't get on the list. But
Okay.
maybe the worst one of them all out of all the picks, in my opinion, is probably Stephen Miller.
What did they assign him to?
That is him. It's Hegseth.
No, it's
Yes, it is. I got it when I looked up his name. That comes up with his images. That is him.
Wait, he's going to, is he defense? No, what is he?
Yes,
What is
it's
Hegseth
him.
he's Secretary of Defense.
Secretary of
Right.
Defense.
What is
It's Hegseth.
Miller's not getting a cabinet position, right?
No, he's just creepy.
Chief of Staff
He's chief
or
of staff.
Deputy Chief of Staff.
And
It's
I
like one
don't
of the others.
honestly. He is beyond like.
I don't understand how he. I mean, I guess
Looks like-
Trump
he
keeps
looks
him on
like-
because he's a yo-yo or something. I don't know.
Trump will, as long as you are 100% loyal, he'll keep
Yeah.
you. Where what happens is somebody does the slight where they're 99% and they're fired, and then
Yeah.
he brings in someone who starts at 100%.
There is a huge over exaggeration about who's a Nazi and who's not. I would say Stephen Miller's probably close to a Nazi, if not outright.
Okay, and then Marco Rubio.
Marco Rubio.
Hello, Marco,
Is
Mr.
he's Secretary of State.
He is Secretary of
How
State.
hilarious!
Oh, well, I'm just glad he's not going to be in the Senate anymore. But the truth is, Harvey, he wanted out of the Senate after one term. This is what's so amazing about Rubio. He's like in the top 5 of most bills passed, and yet he has like the worst attendance record out of anybody in the Senate, which should not come as a surprise. So congratulations, you finally found your way out and you had a nice soft place to land.
All I can think about for the guy down on the bottom in the middle is like he was that character who was the mayor of Toronto or something like that.
Tom,
This is Tom Homan. I guess Homan.
Oh,
and
that's Homan.
He's
Boy,
the border
I've
czar.
avoided watching TV lately, so I don't know
That's
any
your
of these
new border
faces.
czar. That's who we're putting to deal with the people.
Oh my
Our
God. Shit.
that's what we're doing.
So here's the thing about
The
Vivek.
two-headed monster.
The thing
that is
about
that.
Vivek and Elon, I get a kick out of Elon. Vivek comes off like a very slimy. He's like a swamp creature. Like
He'll be one of the first to go.
Like I can't.
He'll be one of the first to go because he will clash too much. He will get too much ego, and he doesn't have enough bringing to the party. See, he can't. Trump can't get rid of Musk.
Like if you've
He can
ever
get rid of
listened to
that guy.
Vivek speak, it's not that he's not intelligent. There's just something so dishonest about his disposition. I can't place it, but you just listen to him and you're thinking, oh, I wouldn't trust.
He
this guy
reminds
as
me of
far
an
as I
Indian
know.
Ben Shapiro.
Do you, who did?
Yeah, you're
He
right.
went to
You're right.
school with oh crap. It was I don't know if it was Shapiro. It was
That's
very
it's
like
just one of those
illuminating with
people
Swine.
that they.
Oh, here's the thing. This should probably not surprise you at all. Vivek went to school with Buttigieg. They both went to school together. I'm telling you guys, it's like this very insulated club. And
But the thing is, I think that Vivek. I mean, you think Elise Stefanik will be the first to go?
I do.
Okay, so this is it. We're
No,
gonna
you know,
follow-
no, because he won't even bother to know what's going on in her.
Exactly. That's what I think. He won't be paying enough attention.
she'll just
to the
be there to
UN.
raise her hand.
Raise her hand for the vetoes. That's all you
yes.
do in that position anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so my pick that's out of these, and again, there are other people that are not on this list, but of this group, I
But
say
that
Vivek
isn't
is-
Tulsi, is it? The one up there?
No, this is dog killer Governor Christie Noem.
Oh, that's a jeez, right.
Okay. No, the first one to go, my pick is Vivek. Who's yours? And then what we could do when they get outed, we'll cross them out and come back.
I never get these things right. The one person who I think is going to stay, who is not going anywhere, is going to be Tom Homan, the head of the. But he's going to be the border czar. I don't think he'll go.
And I don't think
Fine.
Rubio's going anywhere for a while.
No, Rubio will be there for a while.
I could see Zeldin potentially like not really doing his job. Who knows what the hell he's going to do?
See, the better
yeah.
pick would be Hegseth because he's the Fox News guy. Okay,
Yeah.
and
Okay. All right.
But I'm just saying, I'm picking Vivek.
Yeah,
You
and that,
pick-
yeah,
I'll
and then
pick
that's it. I mean, don't discount the possibility that generals will demand his release, his removal.
That's possible too.
Oh, there's a lot of things that are possible. Right. That's all based on all people being confirmed that need to be confirmed. I'm not sure who doesn't need to be confirmed.
All we know.
I don't think Stephen Miller needs to be confirmed. That's probably why he put him in that position. Because I don't think you have to be confirmed for that.
But he has no qualifications to be anything other than that.
I just find him horrifying.
Yes.
He's like the guy who was like, who was it? Goebbels? Who was the idea? Who was the idea behind the whole Third
Was it
Reich? I mean,
Goebbels?
Himmler. It was
No,
one of those
Heinrich
other
Himmler.
people.
Well, Heinrich Himmler was the person who basically came up with the final solution.
Okay, he's that guy.
Yeah.
He's that guy, but with Muslims and immigrants. That's how I think of him. He's the guy who came up with the border policy, with the separation and all that. He's that guy.
The people who are also the most dangerous, Harvey, the ones that always concern me, and again, Himmler is a prime example of that, because the one big difference between Himmler and Hitler is that Hitler actually fought in World War I. Himmler didn't. The most dangerous people in politics, like Goebbels and people like that, are always the ones that never fight. They are always the ones who are the quickest to smash that button to say, oh, bomb them all, kill them all. Those are always the most dangerous.
You know what?
people.
Not everybody's meant for management. I appreciate that.
I'm just saying, but ultimately it's an overcompensation problem. It's a very big thing. That's why I worry about people like Rubio. Him in charge of Secretary
And
of
here's
State.
something, as an attorney, he never litigated. Like I know somebody who worked with the firm that he used to be affiliated with, and while he was the litigator there, his name was literally on the letterhead. He never showed up. He never litigated a case. It's like they were just using his name. And
Well,
just
his survival will
Congress.
depend on the Saudis.
His survival will, I think. Well, everything depends on how well you lick boot.
Yeah. Here's the thing.
Because Trump wants to be like, he will not be challenged at all. He will not be upstaged at all. And anybody that does those things is gone. So everybody is in line with him or they're gone.
I think that's probably a fair assessment. I would agree with that.
And not every president is necessarily like that to the extent that he is. It's 99% ego, if not all ego with him.
No, Trump is definitely very ego driven.
It's like, okay, this doesn't work for my ego. He could not care less about like thinking things through and having like a reasonable thought. Like
I do. Maybe I'm
occur.
wrong for thinking this.
You're right about all those folks, Democrats, Republicans. It's all ego. But the thing about Trump is usually ego is inside, and your personality is outside. To him, the ego is very outside.
Oh, yes.
Okay. And it literally becomes it merges with the personality. There's no distinction there.
He's a caricature.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing, which is why I do think he really does represent this country better than anybody. I cannot think of a better person.
Well, actually, it's funny. It's quite possible that he won strictly on entertainment value. First time and this time.
Yes. Well, there is that element, definitely, like we've created a Hunger Games type media, environment around politics, and it is very theater, and there is that.
Look, if the Democrats offer nothing,
right,
and the Republicans garner votes from the people who you would expect to be completely turned off by what they're doing, then it's got to be something else that's motivating a vote, right? I mean, it is inconceivable that working men will respond to the agenda laid out by Republicans. It's utterly inconceivable.
They don't read the agenda. They don't care, just like the Democrats don't know theirs. This is what it really comes down to at the end of the day. And I guarantee you that this is really what it is. It's a base instinct is people looked at Trump and they looked at Kamala and they just felt more confident that he could handle shit. That's it.
Right.
Whether it's foreign policy or domestic policy, they felt like he could handle shit, and she did not come off that way.
Right.
And it doesn't have to do. And the truth is, when you're talking about somebody that's a chief executive, it really doesn't matter that much what their individual policy is, assuming that we are talking about a republic state. Now, what we can have an argument as to whether or not we're actually a functioning republic. But, presumably somebody in a chief executive position is in there to enforce legislation that is passed by the other people. So if somebody were in theory getting into that position, they might not have to, they're not going to go in and just put all their things into play. That's not how it should work in theory. And I think when people look at that position, they want someone, like you say, is going to kick ass and take names.
Yeah.
And that is what people want in somebody who's in that position. And she just can't. She couldn't hold a candle to him in that way.
By the way, just to put some other elements into her defeat, number one, the Democrats really were portrayed as the party of inflation. And it would have been hard for her to overcome that if she was running without addressing that, and she didn't address it. Okay.
Oh.
And when she started throwing things into the mix, it was all trivial bullshit. Like she was, what was it? She was going to loosen up the rules about Bitcoin so that black men would be, it would appeal to black men. I mean, come on. What?
She wanted to give black men, one of her big things was small business loans to black men. That put me over the edge, as if like somehow small business owner wannabes is that in and of itself is such a huge amount of people that doing that will really help the working class.
The entire campaign was an utter fucking mess.
Disaster.
And to conclude, when you finish your convention speech with, we are going to have the most lethal fighting force in the world, you are to the right of Trump, and here we go again.
You are to the right of Reagan. And I would point out, she opened one of her speeches talking about her economic opportunity plan, which, you know, Harvey, I'm sure it's very much like the 21st century economic bill of rights, wherein she said her plan was endorsed by Goldman Sachs. So I'm sure it's very much like the economic bill of rights. You come out and tell me your economic plan is
you actually had me for a moment, because I was desperately trying to remember, when did she ever approach anything like the economic bill of rights?
She talked about her economic opportunity plan that was endorsed by Goldman Sachs.
Yeah, right.
So now the question, Harvey, is,
by the way, look. This economic.
What do we do? What do we do?
Let him
going
talk.
forward. What do you want to see happen?
I have sat here listening to you guys really go on for a long time, and by the way, I mean, it was very enjoyable. Let me put it that way. But it really is the case. It really is the case. Don't ask me to predict anything. Nothing.
No predictions.
You're not the groundhog. I get it.
Okay. I could predict when spring is coming more effectively than I could predict the day. Look, keep this in mind, okay? This is 50 years of Democratic Party nothingness. They literally conspired to destroy. Look, the party was neoliberal, right?
Yeah.
You know that. Okay. The word neoliberal may refer generically to a whole host of policies that Reagan and others pursued too. But neoliberalism emerged out of the Democratic Party of Carter and Clinton and so on.
Yes.
Okay. It isn't. I mean, I'm sure the Republicans couldn't believe how much the Democrats were doing their work for them. Okay. And it's striking the degree to which the Democrats had deliberately decided they didn't need white working class for a start. Generally, but if you pursue policies that are denigrating of white working class life, it's going to be the same for black and every other kind of working.
It'll be worse for them.
Okay.
It's always worse for them.
Yeah. Okay. So it's utterly ridiculous. Now, then, and I'll say something else. The fact that they then chose, this is great. He probably chose Harris as vice president because this would be not just a woman of color, this would be a black woman. Okay. But this was not a black woman specifically. This was a black and South Asian woman. Okay. And I don't know how they would have expected. And I don't think this is even a matter of racism in this country. I don't think it's racism or sexism in many ways. Okay. I do think, however, that at the moments in which we're that we live, it's just not likely that she's going to win. That's just not likely. Okay. Especially when she offered nothing. She spoke of nothing and offered nothing. Okay. The only thing they ever had to say was, I'm not him. And by the way, most people we already know that half the people were willing to go with him. So if you're not him, then we might as well vote for him because at least it looks like he knows what he's doing. However maniacal so much of it was.
Look, people prefer an idea, even if it's a crazy idea, to no idea. It's kind of like you're better off rolling the dice with the unknown than sticking with what is clearly not working.
Yeah,
right. And then no personality.
And you think about, look, if we go back 4 years, and I was telling, people kept saying he's gonna build an FDR-like administration. Okay, now that would have been a challenge to begin with, given the makeup of Congress. Okay, but that's not the point. The point is everyone talked about, look, he was pursuing this policy and that policy. The one thing he never did, in fact, made sure it would never happen, is he never actually engaged people. He didn't engage them in any kind of transformational process. I don't mean to get academic on you, but
no, I understand what you're saying. There was no actual, the thought might have been, the thought doesn't count is what we're saying. That there was no action taken to actually
or
do
if the action taken is a matter of trying to get some kind of policies passed through Congress, most people aren't paying attention anyhow. They just want, if it happens, it happens, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And then guess what? I'm sure we talked about this a lot. If you, let's take the finest element in the Biden record, the finest element, the child tax credit question.
Okay.
50% of children were going to be lifted out of poverty. What about the other 50%? What are Democrats so dense that people don't hear 50%? Wait a minute. What about the other 50%? And then make it temporary. So in other words, we're going to make it temporary, and at the end of the year, your kids are going to fall right back into poverty. I mean, what kind of thinking goes on in the brains of these people?
Capital. That's it.
Look, you could undeniably, but that doesn't, it would be easy, right? If the Democrats had come in and said, we're going to pass Medicare for all children, Capital wouldn't have cared.
Are you kidding me?
No, they if they had declared that's what they were going to do, they could fight it all they wanted, and it would have rebounded against them.
Then
because it's children. You're talking about children.
And then the insurance and the pharma industry would band together, and all those people would lose their seats if they weren't already bought and paid for by those lobbyists in the first place.
But that's what I mean about no engagement. You don't do that without literally rallying people and bringing people out. Okay, you're just exactly that.
Yeah,
and it didn't even cross their minds, because look, the Democrats, they don't like their fellow citizens. They don't trust their fellow citizens. God forbid they should talk about not me, us, which has nothing to do with the Christian or Jewish ethos. It has to do specifically with, I can't do it on my own. You have got to be there when I'm trying to do it. Okay, I mean, Bernie was the best thing to happen to the Democratic Party, and ultimately, he just wasn't a closer.
Yeah. He wasn't a closer.
Exactly.
That's it, Harvey. That was it. And I was there. I was in Philadelphia.
It's sad. It's sad because it's like we got close. That was the closest. But I mean, this election to me was the Democrats redoing their 2016 all over again, except insert Kamala for Hillary. And I knew they were going to get the same result.
Yeah.
You are right there. I mean, which is why even if your mask coming off was cartoonish, it is the best cartoon is the cartoon which gets closest to the truth, and that is the case.
Yes.
There's a key. The best difference would have been that Walz, if he hadn't been neutered, okay, as you said, is that he was a better candidate, vice president, than Kaine. Was that his name?
Yeah, Tim Kaine, 100%. 100%.
But I think that was also part of it, is that Walt was actually more personable, easier than Kamala was. And I think you don't want the VP sort of stealing your show. And the thing about her is, like, you can tell if you ever hear her, anytime you catch her where she's not on a teleprompter and she's actually just talking to somebody, she doesn't have anything going on. There's no thought going on. There's no principles. There's no ethos. There's no nothing.
Yeah, no, or at least she's terribly inarticulate when it comes to trying
and then one has to question, or not question, but we guess how she got as far as she did to be the Attorney General in California, when I can't even fathom her litigating a case.
Yeah, well, I mean, if I or Peter were to begin to talk about that, we would be.
Oh, I know what it is. I just and I agree.
Most people, the story was out, you know.
Yeah, but you know what? When I think about her legacy, because Kamala's finished, like
she's not going to have a legacy. She'll have a footnote.
She's just finished, and so
that's
what I would say, because a lot of people want to point to Willie Brown, but at the end of the day, for me, her legacy, as far as I'm concerned, is Steve Mnuchin and One World Bank. That's her legacy. She was the Attorney General of California when that piece of shit kicked millions of Californians out of their homes during the housing crisis, and she went right along with it, even though her office demanded that they bring charges against this man. And not only did she not, but she ended up receiving the largest campaign contribution for her senatorial run from him, and that is the only Democrat he ever donated to, which was $300,000.
I have to say, I defer to you on all this because I don't know any of this. This is great.
But you can see
her
why
margin.
that's a conflict.
He was the highest donor to her.
Not only was he the biggest donor, but he never donated to a Democrat before or since. She's the only one.
Her Senate race.
When
Her
you
Senate
have-
race. Yeah, no, I understood that. Yeah.
When you are a climber, when you have aspirations, look at Elise Stefanik in the GOP. We see these people, even AOC, we see these people coming before they even got Buttigieg in Michigan. When you become a seasoned veteran in this cesspool we call politics,
you can see it.
These people coming before they even have a chance to fool the masses.
So, so the prediction is for Michigan.
So the prediction for Michigan is obviously Buttigieg versus Nessel.
And she's going to be calling him the carpetbagger.
The top 5 Democratic presidential candidates in 2028 in terms of the Democratic establishment.
Tell me, who do you think?
Well, it's going to be
know.
It's good. 5 governors.
Newsom.
Gavin Newsom, J.B. Pritzker, Andy Beshear, Gretchen Whitmer, and Josh Shapiro. And there's your 5.
Right.
That's who it's going to be.
Wait,
and it will be
hold on. Say that one more time. I want to make sure you included the one I would have.
Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, you did. There you go.
J.B. Pritzker,
right.
Andy Beshear, Gretchen Whitmer,
and Josh Shapiro.
And there's your 5.
And it's better than that. Better than that. Write this down.
Yeah.
Tell me who of the 5 will emerge as the nominee.
Whitmer will be one of the 5. She'll be
no. I'm with Jen. Not a chance.
No.
Not a chance.
I hope so, because if those scandals, once the scandals are allowed to come to mainstream regarding Flint and Kalamazoo,
it'll be Newsom, maybe with Whitmer, but it will be Newsom.
If the Democrats are actually trying to evolve and change, the only logical pick is Andy Beshear.
He's the only one that is. To me,
I understand that too. I was going to say that, but
I mean, he would be of those 5 the person I would pick of those 5. But Whitmer, let me tell you something. This is like a woman to woman kind of where she got the crazy eyes. Got the crazy eyes.
Another thing that only women can say that we can't say.
No. I want to be very clear about this. She has the mommy dearest crazy eyes. And women that have the crazy eyes are not really, it's like it's just not going to work, because the more people see, there will be more of she'll decompose. Yeah.
Jay in your chat is saying Newsom is despised in California.
Oh, I'm sure
that may be true. That may be true, but it doesn't matter. He doesn't need California to win.
Exactly. The fact that Californians, your votes don't matter.
There's 2 things that you have to remember, Jay. That's very important here. Very important. Number 1, he is Nancy Pelosi's nephew, and Nancy Pelosi is running for re-election for the 20th time.
This is great. I didn't even know that. He is Nancy Pelosi's nephew?
Yeah, correct. You didn't know that?
Do you think I know the incestuous nature
I'm
of all
telling
this
you, it is very incestuous.
Because what I think is going to end up happening, and this is why we so desperately
they're
want to
change. They're going to inbreed to the point of just being completely disfigured.
Which is why we want to change the electoral dynamics of the country. Because if you think about it, California politics and Wisconsin politics are 2 completely different worlds.
California's vote doesn't matter.
Here in Wisconsin, they actually believe that Ben Wickler, who's the head of the party in this state, has a chance to become the national director.
I don't know enough about that.
I've had a couple of interactions.
I am not nominating. I'm just telling you what.
Well, there's a difference between what's smart for them to do and what they will do.
Correct.
Those are very different things.
Now, listen, I am somewhat familiar with Wickler. I can tell you this. Do I think Wickler would be a better choice than Rahm Emanuel? Yes, I do.
Look, even I'll say that without reservation.
Rahm Emanuel in any other universe would be a Republican. So I don't like to me this is, and he always was.
The more we live through this moment, the more we recognize that the working class, even though a lot of them have gone over to Trump, they are recognizing the fault lines within this system in a way that I've never really seen before. And that's encouraging, There's going to be a lot of pain that we're going to go through. But the more we go through it in these moments where you're not going to, and again,
that's a good call,
and this
right
is
there.
a good call by Jay Both,
Now,
because if the person
Liz
you're
Cheney
campaigning with is Liz Cheney, and that's just kind of all you need to know as far as I'm
it wasn't a selling point, Harvey. It
No.
wasn't a selling point.
No.
No, thank you. This is really good. Nichols, who pays attention to the details of all this stuff.
He was on here last week.
Oh, was he talking about Liz Cheney in Wisconsin?
Yeah, he said something. We were just talking about it in general, but yeah.
I mean, she said in Wisconsin as if that was going to help win Wisconsin, right? I mean,
did that work?
I swear to you, I could have sworn I read it somewhere. I think it was one of his columns. He said something like, they went together to like Ripon, Wisconsin, which is where the Republican Party began. And as a consequence, they probably lost even more votes when they brought Liz Cheney. Who the hell knows? By the way, the Republican Party was founded in Wisconsin originally, in Ripon, Wisconsin. You know that.
In 1856. Yeah.
I thought it was 4, but it could be 56.
Yeah. Well, I know you're right. 1854 in the first race that they ran.
Have to
and those folks who came together were not anything like any later Republicans.
Well, no, and it's not even that. It's like the semblance of the old. And I've always said my favorite president will always be Teddy Roosevelt. And
did you see the thing I sent you?
Yes, I did.
Wasn't that cool?
He will never be my favorite president.
I understand that. That's okay. After his
who's your favorite president?
FDR.
Well, I'm really. I have to admit, I in a general sense, favorite is FDR, but it's really hard for me to choose between Lincoln and FDR.
Yeah, I have none.
The reason I pick the reason I pick, because I do believe that the three
Millard Fillmore, you should choose Millard Fillmore.
No, you know what do I compare it to when you say who's your favorite president? What do I compare it to?
Who is the least terrible?
I say that's like asking me my favorite venereal disease.
Oh, come on.
That's what that is to me. Let me tell you something. Margaret on the show. We'll get Margaret on the show.
Margaret's coming back.
Good. And then we'll have her tell us about the presidents, because let me tell you,
Margaret who?
Margaret Kimberly.
Let me tell you, I actually was holding out hope until the last possible moment that there was some decency with Jimmy Carter, and then
you're talking to the wrong one. You are talking.
And then, well, because I really knew of him most from what he did post presidency, and
which is what most people know.
And so you can see why I would think, okay, decent enough guy. Okay, so once that got shot to shit from her book, exactly, they're all like that, and you're talking about degrees of capitalist and evil. That's it. They're all on, like, if you could do like one of those cross things, it's capitalism versus level of evil, and like right where they mix. So sort of like the woman hot crazy spectrum. You know the woman hot crazy thing that they have?
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
Okay, so on How I Met Your Mother, there used to be this chart that they called the something hot crazy scale. So it was, in other words, how hot a woman is dictates how crazy she's allowed to be. So so if a woman is really hot, chances are she's going to be a nut job. But if she's really unattractive, then it's just this whole scale. But that's sort of how I feel about.
But we've really reached a new level when we're talking. What's that show you referred to?
How I Met Your Mother.
How I Met Your Mother and the hot crazy scale.
It's the hot crazy. I forget what they call it.
Oh, I'd rather go watch a Seinfeld episode than worry about that.
Yeah. Oh, did you order? Good. Everybody that Sarah is referring to, give a shout out to the War Criminals playing cards. It's thewarcriminals.com. It's a deck of current Gaza war criminals. Bernie and Obama are the jokers.
Well, I am not a joker.
And there's a whole pack of them here, and it's global. So, for those of you like, Keir Starmer fans, your guys in here too.
Keir Starmer's terrible.
And I'm just saying.
Can I respond to something in the chat just because it's
yes? What's in the chat?
Which one?
Is that Manwith Lang? Anyhow.
Here, Lincoln was
allegedly pen pals with Marx. Some of my good friends believe that, and I don't think there's real evidence for that. But it is the case that a lot of his circles were very much socialist, communist, anarchists, that kind of. I mean, Lincoln had.
I would believe that he read that and knew that and appreciated it, even if they weren't corresponding persons.
This is also one of the more difficult aspects of why we feel that there needs to be, even if they're not a major party, there needs to be multiple parties in this country, because one of the reasons why FDR was so successful, particularly in his first, and it was really his first term, that he was just tremendously successful and had this overwhelming mandated majority when he won in 1936. And of course, he passed the singular most popular policy in the nation to this day, which is Social Security. And so one of the reasons why is because you had the remnants of it that started in a very unique way. I didn't even realize how young William Jennings Bryan was when he ran the first time against McKinley, but that was sort of a touch point, which ultimately led to Eugene Debs becoming such an amazing fixture with the Socialist Party. And so much of his platform, particularly in that first term of FDR, got enacted as a means of helping this country out of the Depression. And so when people are seeking another path outside the two-party duopoly, this is why the greatest sin of the Democratic Party, the Republican Party doesn't do this, mind you. The Democratic Party spends millions upon millions of dollars every election cycle to run Greens off of ballots in as many states as possible. They did it in Wisconsin in 2020. Now, granted, the Greens weren't going to do anything in 20, but generally speaking,
that's not the point.
If we don't have these outside forces, then there's never going to be enough pressure put on the two major parties to ever do anything. That's why they're completely corporate engulfed.
The problem is the third, in the 21st century, third parties can only serve a nuisance role, and that's speaking of numbers. Okay, it's not, the trick is how can we get the likes of Shane and O'Brien and a whole host, and Sarah Nelson and others, to figure out that without leaving the AFL-CIO, which would be very costly, how it is that they can start to become not simply an organizing force, but really a political force.
The Workers' Party.
No, that won't work. We tried that. Okay, the Labor Party back in the 90s, was it? In fact, no, it's the case that you have, look, let's face it, there is no way the Republican Party can be the party of the working class. That won't last. It can't last. And if it does, then we can write off the United States, period. I mean, that means that nobody really gives a shit what happens. I mean,
I'm not sure.
Well, I don't think it's that people don't give a shit. I think we just realize that that only 0.001% of the people, or whatever it is, actually have their will met through policy.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, it's,
I mean, because if they're serious about some of the stuff they're talking about, then look, it's just because working class people have people in their families who are going to, who even if the workers themselves who have decent jobs, they'll have family members who will depend on government support, and they're not going to want to pick up the tab when that goes away. So it can't be. I mean, that's why, by the way, it's not inconceivable that Trump and Musk will split. Trump and Musk will split.
Yeah,
I think that come. I mean, Musk is fantasizing, literally just wiping out, vast array of human activity.
I don't like him at all either, but that's a clash of egos that'll be like a clash of the Titans. But I think like what you're talking about would be like if Shama Sawant's group was an actual party. Right. And so you're talking about, but isn't that basically what you're saying? I mean, that's a Labor Party, essentially.
Oh, sorry. You mean out in Seattle?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no. And by the way, it's the best role for third parties is at the urban level.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
They can make a real difference. Okay?
Yes. Yeah, they can have that opportunity.
But all those unions need to come together. I mean, and
this goes, and from my opinion, when it comes to the Greens and the Libertarians, which are obviously the only two parties outside the two-party system that have any type of infrastructure in the United States, there are so many unchallenged seats. There are so many one-party dominated seats. One of the lessons that you can really take away, and I honestly believe this is my opinion, Harvey, I think that Dan Osborne ran a really solid campaign in Nebraska as an independent, but he made a lot of mistakes at the end of that race, particularly lining up with some big establishment celebrity heavy hitters in the Democratic Party. You can't do that. If you're going to run as an independent,
you can't be with the party.
Independent. You have.
That's an interesting point. I hadn't thought of that, mostly because I hadn't paid attention at the end. I figured he was. I thought he was going to win.
Within like 2 points. He was there. He had a shot. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I do. No, I didn't write him off. And on the contrary, I thought if the dynamic is there, he could win. But I didn't realize what they did at the end, thinking that it was going to bring them the extra numbers. So
like
who did he bring in? Who did he bring in in
he
support?
brought in Julia Louis-Dreyfus. She's like one of like the most known celebrity Democratic Party establishment people that exists.
It's hard for me to believe that anyone imagines she would have made a difference.
No, but it's
No.
not about that. It's about, are there, because remember, Nebraska's a very red state, but at the end of the day, it's also a state that has a very, Nebraska is where William Jennings Bryan comes
Right.
from.
No, exactly.
To me, it's all about, there are people in
It
this
came up
country,
looking elitist.
there are people in this, think about it, there are millions
'Cause-
upon millions of workers in this country who want single payer and a living wage, and they will not vote for the Democratic Party under any circumstances. And so to me, that really tells you all you need to know. So it's one thing if there are people who, let's say, donate to the Democratic Party or donating to Dan Osborne instead, okay, but you're going to do a rally with Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Right. No, I agree with you. I agree with you. It just strikes me as, I can't imagine why one would even want to do it, frankly.
That's the kind of choice you make when you're being assisted by party people and they call in and bring in their consultants and their people.
Correct.
And then they're the ones who
so he
bring in
resorted to the Democratic Party consultants.
Well, they
100%.
crossed over into their people, obviously. You know, they obviously were affiliated with people that ran other campaigns.
Yeah, if
like
people
that.
want out of the two-party duopoly,
Stop using their consultants.
Yeah, well, and the other way that you do it is that, you know, it's not going to come in states like Wisconsin and Michigan and even Pennsylvania, where it's such a nip and tuck back and forth. But you could go into a red state like Nebraska. You could go into a blue state like California. You just have to run outside of that opposite party. You have to be truly committed to getting away from it. And there are a lot of voters who do not want this two-party system anymore. You have to start building your infrastructure somewhere.
Well, look, I mean, Jose Vega tried to do that too.
And it didn't work. And of course, part of the reason it didn't work is because you're doing it in one of the most entrenched places in the country, on top of the fact that you don't have a financial infrastructure or
See, I think I agree. I think
You know?
that if people that are like our populist left type people went into redder places and instead of running as Democrats ran as independents, you'd have a chance to get things done. But what the problem is,
to me, I mean, there's so many here in Wisconsin, the northwestern part of the state was for many years represented by, I think his first name was Robert, anyhow, Obey, Congressman Obey. He was, for lack of a better word, going back in time, a liberal Democrat, okay? Probably the kind of guy who would have supported, it was probably like an FDR Democrat.
This is the district that covers like a substantial amount of territory. Is that
northwest?
correct?
Yeah, northwestern.
Okay. All right, I know which
part
district
of the state.
Okay.
And when it went red, it went red. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Like
Iowa. Like Iowa. Like Iowa, like Western Iowa.
Right. And one would say, well, why'd that happen? Well, it is the case, and my students from that part of the state wing anything to counter the closing of the, the downtown were dying. People needed jobs, they needed investments in the area, and they did nothing. So vast rural areas. And by the way, after a while, it doesn't even matter the basis upon which it happens. It becomes part of the identity of the area, republic, right? So to crack it, it may well be the case, Jen, that it will have to be folks coming in as independents running progressively to crack that open.
That's what I'm saying, but it won't.
That's why I was when you said that, I was thinking just about that. Right.
So that is the way to do it, as opposed to places that have a democratic infrastructure where they will not let somebody left of them come in, because that's sort of like what we have here, or places where it's so blue and you would think, well, let's just pull them to the left. You have a better chance of getting populist things through, I do believe, in rural red places with an independent than you will in blue places with a progressive Democrat.
That's like the whole thought process about FDR, because that's what really worked for him.
And I think that's sort of like that's the better strategy.
It's also the biggest reason why Truman was able to win in 48, because he basically he basically reminded the farmers, particularly in the heartland and the South, that were so loyal to FDR, that we're still going to fight for these issues that you've been supporting for so long. And he won. And
Yeah,
I do.
by the way,
that-
there's one particular speech which I actually used in my For Freedoms book by Truman, and you'd think he was really a firebrand leftist. I mean, he knew how to point a finger right at the capitalists.
Oh yeah,
No.
but Truman, unfortunately, was a big letdown in many ways, to say the
Oh
least.
no! By the way,
If only we had Henry Wallace.
yeah. See, I don't buy. I know that my friend John Nichols says that, adores him, and I think a lot of people do. I don't think Wallace was as good as he spoke. I don't think he was as good as he spoke.
There may be.
It would have been better than Truman.
But I do think it would have been better than Truman.
Yeah, I don't know about the better or worse, but I do know that I don't celebrate Wallace.
I understand, but I look at it this way.
But by the way, I celebrate him for what he did. I don't I don't necessarily know if he should have been president.
Right.
I look at it this way. If the party insiders wanted Truman and not Wallace, I'm inclined to go with who the party insiders didn't want.
Well, there's that.
That's my opinion. Harvey, it's always a pleasure to have you here. Guys, make sure that you click the link in the description. If you are not currently following the professor, make sure that you do. He's also got some really great books. And
bunch of articles.
Yes, reading is knowledge is power, and reading is a lost art. Even if you want it read to you,
I do like to be read to.
which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. We will definitely have you back again soon, because Lord knows if everything's going to fall apart, we're going to want to continue to schmooze about it.
Oh, we're all dying. We're all going to die. I'm like Jennifer Lawrence in Don't Look Up. I swear I am. I'm like, we're all going to die.
You've been saying that for over a year now. So
I'm not wrong.
Oh God.
Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Rest well, and we really
one last question. One last question for people listening. Where should people live right now?
Like, where's a good
They were
place
going to
go?
move to a place.
Not
in the United
Florida.
States.
Okay, first of all, not South Florida.
Right.
I mean, my goal is to be in a place that's a smaller, more sustainable community. So I don't like the whole big city thing. That's not for me. I think that's inevitably not going to serve us like as humanity. I think when
I'm talking for the next 4 years.
Like, where's a good place to go to?
Yeah.
I don't know. Look, Western North
Wisconsin?
Carolina was my escape, and now look, that got washed away. So
Yeah, I only worry about Wisconsin is I'm hoping, but I'm not confident.
You want to go but see, Wisconsin is infinitely better than like what we have. If you're talking about
Absolutely.
Right. So you're talking about like a nice.
Well, like for example, in 19. This is funny. I was thinking about this earlier. I think it was about 1970. There was an article in one of the men's magazines that said that called for progressives. I don't know the term, if he used the term liberals, leftists, radicals. I don't remember. The author said should all move to Vermont.
He meant in this country, people, and I appreciate all of your international recommendations, but he was actually talking about.
Oh, I see what they're doing, right?
Yes, well, I'm with them. I'm with Costa Rica. I'm with all those places. Portugal sounds great too. I'm with all that. Vermont, I'll tell you what.
What I've always wondered is, go 20 years later, or not even 15 years later, and Bernie's running for mayor of Burlington, and then he's going to end up running for Congress. It's just
Vermont.
Right.
I think New Hampshire, actually, if we're talking about like the vibe, I like New Hampshire. It is a very,
I like New Hampshire a lot too.
Very libertarian, very just people, a lot of civil libertarians there. And I like that. Yeah. And not, yeah, I'd go someplace that doesn't have like a record number of churches, someplace that, there's telltale signs of people that,
I would not
that judge lifestyles in a place.
I mean, I think Wisconsin has always been. Look, I love Wisconsin in many ways. It's just that what Walker did to the state. The question is, can in 2026 can we finally overcome this shit?
Well, it's not what Walker did to the state. It's what the Koch brothers and their installed candidate.
Thank you. Of course it is. Right. Absolutely.
And again, we always get caught up in this notion of this person's terrible. No, it's a It's a
Yeah.
small club and you're not invited. There are very
I don't want to
few-
go to their club.
Yeah, very few pieces on the chessboard. They own them all. And so now we're just trying to figure out how to prevent them from controlling everything and maybe fighting back. We'll see what happens. Mr.
Okay,
Kaye,
so thank you for having me.
Thanks,
and,
Harvey.
appreciate you as always.
It's always good. I sent you a text. Now you know who we are.
I know how to reach you. I know where you
That's what I-
live.
You know where I am.
Happy
Bye-bye.
holidays, my friend.
Bye, Harvey.
One of our favorites. And of
Always.
course, he is another hardened Democrat who doesn't want to let go.
Because
and I
and
get
these
it.
are the people that actually remember a party that did at least put on an appearance of being a working class
Sure.
party. I don't know that it ever was. I don't know that.
I just
from
think
what
that
I'm
there was-
gathering, it wasn't.
But I also think that there was a time when the Republican Party, which has always been the party of managerial of management, if you will, it's never not been, but it's also been a party that did represent the people. And much like the Democratic Party is supposed to be the party of labor representing the people, I think one of the biggest reasons we don't have that today is because of how much labor has been crushed.
Well,
over history.
here's something that I'm thinking about that I just think we don't talk about enough, right? So if you're saying that the Democratic Party is supposed to represent people, shouldn't all
Workers.
parties be representing people?
Well, they should.
And so this is the problem with that entire mindset, is the idea that it is so clearly always been a class issue. And that is now the problem is that both classes are now no longer being represented. Now you only have one class being represented. I don't know that we ever really had two classes being represented, but there was the facade of it when unions and labor were doing better. It looked better when the cost of living and people were doing better. When I was little, my parents, like my mom was able to do work from home, my dad worked, and it's like we were fine. But like you wouldn't be able to do that now. Like you wouldn't be able to do that now. Like there's no just regular people working and being able to have a nice life now. That no longer exists.
No.
So I think when that existed, that it seemed like the Democratic Party was the party of the working people because things were good for them. But I'm not so entirely sure that that isn't just the happenstance trajectory that we've been on, and that it really doesn't matter. That as capital keeps growing, it wouldn't have mattered which part. Like that's what I think. I think the parties are completely irrelevant.
You see,
I think
this
that
is the type-
capital, yeah.
See, that's part of the problem, is thinking that this is the solution. As it turns out, it isn't, because one of the reasons we've had
We're
better
wage slaves.
wages,
We're wage slaves in this country.
better healthcare. Again, we need real fundamental change. But
My point is they're the same as what I was saying.
if you can't recognize that there needs to be collective organizing in this country, remember, 1 out of 3 workers at one time were a paid union member. Today, it's just over 10%.
But the point is, it has nothing to do with the parties.
No.
Both parties are equally non-working class.
Think about what Christian Smalls did with Amazon in Staten Island. The majority of
They still haven't gotten their an agreement.
Of course not. Because, and again, once the government is bought off, they do not respond. They answered to Bezos and said, fuck the law. It doesn't apply to us. We make our own laws. The law's for ye, not for thee. That's how it works. And so this is why a labor movement is the only way out of this, because one Amazon distribution center unionizing doesn't mean anything. 100, that means something. But that's not happening.
He'll have robots before that happens.
100%. And this is also part of the reason why we suffer so much, because we're so technologically dependent. People would rather pick this up than pick up, I don't know, even a comic book, just something that's different.
That's not a good
All right, a book.
example.
Knowledge. It matters. It's all relevant. And one of the things that should scare the shit out of everybody right now,
Oh, there's a lot of things that scare the shit out of me right now.
I have been very adamant, and Jay is probably right. Overall, capitalism is incompatible with a Democrat.
Yes, that's what I've been saying. They do not coexist.
No.
It's not feasible.
Yes.
It's just not.
But what should be really scary to people is, I have maintained that one of the real appeals of Trump is that he's just so enigmatic that he will do something that makes total sense for the wrong reasons. Trump wants his Nobel Prize, for example, as I've been stating. And the fact that one of the first things that he did when he won the presidency was to call Zelensky and say, we got to get to the negotiating table and end this senseless war. And so now we are faced with the prospect of, and I am not putting this on Joe Biden because Joe Biden's not there. This is not his call.
All right, so we're officially starting. So you said Joe Biden. Okay.
So President Blinken, as I like to say, and whoever else is in charge, is making a
here's
very
Blinken.
dangerous call right now that the ace of spades,
It's Joe.
Mr.
Sleepy Joe.
Sleepy Joe,
Is the ace of
ace of
spades.
spades,
And Blinken's the king.
king of spades. They have decided that not only are we not going to have peace in Ukraine, we are going to do everything in our power to try to start World War III. Not a very smart move, but as it turns out, the Biden administration, as I like to say, they like to say it's President Biden, but we'll say it's the Biden administration, has approved NATO's ballistic missiles to Ukraine to be targeted into Russia. Vladimir Putin has said time and again that this is a nuclear war red line. Do not fucking cross it.
They want to call his bluff. Like it's are they just that? Is it that people like Joe, he's old. How many more years does he have left? What does he care? But
he's not even there. He's not even saying anything. That's my point.
I just don't understand. Like, but this is going to end very badly.
You're gonna, you know,
Like,
how many people
very
are
badly.
Do you know how many people you're basically daring a lot of scared progressives to now go and support Trump, and that's what they're going to do. Because if they think Trump will stop this, they're going to go support him.
Now, ironically, the only reason, and this is true, the only reason that Trump or any of the people I think that have interest in stopping the war in Ukraine truly have interest in stopping the war in Ukraine is because they want those resources to be allocated to China. And so I do not have any like delusion that Trump solving the potentially stopping the Ukraine fiasco is somehow makes him a peace president. That's just not happening.
Well, let's hope that that is not the case, Space Chad. We certainly hope that that's not the case. But
they're really hitting a hornet's nest with a baseball bat. Like to me, this is off the wall. And I am surprised that somebody somewhere hasn't taken Zelensky out yet.
Well, that could be, well, you never know. That could be coming.
I think he's going to get suicided.
But here's what the president of Russia had to say.
Дни мы видим и слышим, как на очень высоком уровне Великобритании и США муссируется тема о том, что киевский режим сможет наносить удар в территорию России западными вооружениями большой дальности. И, судя по всему, это решение либо вот-вот будет принято, либо, судя по всему, вообще уже принято. И эта вещь, конечно, экстраординарная. Хотел вас попросить прокомментировать то, что происходит.
So I don't translate the Russian, but what I can tell you is that what he basically was asking him is that, what are you going to do now that the ballistic missiles from Kiev are being pointed directly to Moscow?
Right.
How
this is the guy questioning Vladimir Putin.
And let me tell you, talk about a perfect screen capture.
I will read Putin's answer. The English translation.
Thank you.
Происходит попытка
There is an attempt to substitute concepts because we are not talking about authorizing or banning the Kiev regime from striking across the entire territory. It is already striking with the help of drones and other means. But when it comes to using high precision, long-range, Western-made weapons, it's a completely different story. And he's right. And he's right.
He is.
And you know what? They are now really entering into the find out portion. You're really entering into the find out portion.
And this is because
of the show.
And this is really the remnants of this is the crumbling empire, because BRICS is just starting to get its sea legs. If Russia gets to the point where they are in total alliance with China, there is nothing the United States can do.
Well, they already are getting to that point, but BRICS is really an economic situation, which to me is ultimately how the empire falls. The empire ultimately falls when BRICS becomes richer than us. When BRICS is able to get away from the American dollar, when they're able to actually, oh my God, trade in their own currency. How dare they? Oh my God, they want to trade in their own currencies. How dare they?
When that all comes to play is when we really will see the end of empire. It's not going to necessarily happen like a real military thing regarding our end of power. It's going to be an economic thing. And any country that spends all of its money and resources killing other people instead of taking care of its own people deserves to fall.
And this is also why Putin's disposition is so peaceful, as Peace Dove is pointing out.
He's watching us implode.
And not only that, but think about it. It's really the Democratic establishment. He just watched the Democratic establishment blame him for all of their problems for the past decade. And now the Democratic Party is in shambles and he is in the driver's seat. Isn't it amazing how the arc of history moves in such a unique direction sometimes?
I think that people like him and the people that surround him and their sort of, I guess, counterparts to our people, I think that those counterparts in every other country, in all the BRICS countries, all those countries, they hate us.
Oh,
and I don't mean us American people.
Most of them don't hate American people.
No.
They hate ignorant Americans.
Well, this is about, they know the people like him, they know it's not regular American people, just like he knows regular Russians aren't in charge of Russia. So, they know that, but they think that we're morons. And by we, I do actually mean that collectively, but I do think that like governmentally, like he doesn't need to do very much. Just like Trump didn't need to do very much to win. You just watched the other party lose. He just watched Kamala completely implode because there's no there there.
David, 2016 called, they want their talking points back. Please get off that kick. Like, this is just so fucking stupid.
I don't buy it. I just think that it's not, I don't think so.
It's all financial.
Here's the
business.
Thing, and I've said it a million times. I don't care what language my oligarch speaks.
Neither do I.
Right? I don't necessarily think English-speaking oligarchs are inherently better than Russian-speaking oligarchs or Chinese oligarchs or Saudi oligarchs or any of them. So to me, it doesn't matter. They're all playing rich people stratego. And they have us fighting amongst ourselves like the actual borders is what really differentiates us when it's a class war.
Yep. The fact that I have already mentioned this, any experts confirm that a country in the West, the Ukrainian army, is not able to strike with modern long-range precision systems of the Western manufacture. Cannot do this. Can only do so using intelligence from satellites, which Ukraine does not have. This is data only from EU satellites.
He's saying facts.
Or from the United States in general, from NATO satellites.
And if it's our weapons, he's going to take care of business, as he should. I have something else to say about this.
These missile systems, Ukrainian servicemen cannot do this. And so this is not about allowing the Ukrainian regime to strike Russia with these weapons or not. It is about deciding whether NATO countries are directly involved in a military conflict
or not. It's that simple.
If this decision is made, it will mean nothing other than the direct participation of NATO countries, the United States, European countries in the war in Ukraine. This is their direct participation. And this already, of course, significantly changes the very essence, the very nature of the conflict. This would mean that NATO countries, the US, European countries, are at war with Russia. And if that is the case, then bear in mind the change in the very essence of this conflict. We will take appropriate decisions based on the threats that will be posed to us. You think he's fucking around?
I don't. And I think they're really going to have their asses handed in. But here's something I just interestingly, you know who isn't in this deck of cards? Vladimir Putin.
Interesting.
Well, because why? They're not participating in that nonsense.
As I've always maintained, I will continue to maintain. Western Ukraine has some of the richest resources on the planet, and we want to control them. And Russia says no. we're going to get a piece of the action.
I don't even think I mean, yes, but they are so much more justified in what they're doing. And I want to
I
say
understand,
something
but this is
about
also why Ukraine is not the red line. The red line is Ukraine is not joining NATO. Like that is the red line.
Oh, but see, this is very similar to what's happening in Palestine, where pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. See, now what's going to happen? See, Ukraine could have bowed out of this peacefully at the point before what's his name, Boris from the UK went over there, and we ended up not taking the deal, and they continued the fighting, and all of that went down. That was the turning point to where now Ukraine will cease to even be Ukraine. Forget not joining NATO. This is what Colonel Wilkerson calls a rump state, is what it will become, a rump state, that it will no longer really have its own whole functioning thing. They're really heading in that direction. It's going to be a disaster.
Are you not capable of political nuance?
No, I am not defending Putin, but that's not our enemy. Honestly, imagine if Russia had its battleships in the Gulf of Mexico on a regular basis.
They should. Just to see how freaked out the American people would be.
I mean, we are just constantly in their business, and it's just so egregious. It really is. So I'm not defending Putin. What I'm saying is that's not our corn muffin.
No.
Okay, that's not our problem. So, and as far as them having North Koreans in their country helping them, are you kidding me? How is that any of our business? A country that they have an agreement with. So in other words, both of those countries are honoring the agreement they have with each other. And one of those countries has service people in said other country and are working in the boundaries of said other country. And that's our business. How? That justifies us allowing Ukraine to send long-range missiles to Moscow. How? Because somehow they have North Koreans helping them in their own country. Does anybody not hear how, that's insane to me. That sounds like
should be
crazy to me. Really? Okay. And I do not think he's bluffing. And I think that the kind of shit that they're going to do strategically is going to be very, very rude awakening for a lot of people. I think that there's going to be service people dead in a lot of foreign places if they really go with this. I don't think he's bluffing.
I would recommend that you turn off corporate media, that you stop paying attention to things.
And I'm saying this with all seriously, this might not be your place.
Yeah. Not this. Yeah.
Because to me, you really are buying into the whole nationalism, good guys, bad guys, our team, their team. There's only two teams. There's the haves, which is a very small little team.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's everybody else globally.
Again, this doesn't mean that Putin's a good guy.
No.
Most people in the world are not good people.
No, most people that
positions?
lead, and especially world leaders.
Between Putin, Xi Jinping, and Biden, apparently.
And I definitely don't like what's his name? Kim Jong-un. I mean, these are not, no. But what I'm saying is, it's not our problem. They do not pick fights with us. None of them do. We pick fights with everybody. If we got our ships out of their area and we stopped encroaching in the area where we know that we're not supposed to be, why are we even in places like that? Why are we in Syria when they've asked us to leave? It's like there are other countries in the world that just don't appreciate a world bully. They just don't. And no, I don't think Putin is a great guy. But what I do know is that Putin and what's his name? ZP, who's China? These people.
Xi Jinping.
Right. Yeah. They are not in every other country's business militarily. But they don't have bases. They don't have bases in countries asking them to leave and they refuse to get out. So, yes, I know he's not a good guy, whatever. But how is that our business if he's not doing anything to us?
It's the same thing with Bashar al-Assad in Syria. It's the same thing. Bashar al-Assad is not a good guy, but you know what? He doesn't have to be an enemy.
But here's the other thing. He did not gas his own people.
And they still say that.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz She just said it the other day again.
Just like her calling Tulsi a Russian asset.
The Assad gassing his own people has been discredited and debunked repeatedly. And I'm not saying he's a good guy.
God,
I
I'd
don't
like to
know.
get Douglas McGregor
But what
on
I
our
do
show.
know is that we have torture centers all over the world where we torture people in all sorts of violations of human rights. We have Gitmo, which is full of people that haven't even been formally charged with anything, that are just being held there with no due process whatsoever. So when we are so mass in violation of human rights all around the world, we don't get to pick who's the bad guys. Like, are you like, where do we get off? Like, that's just insane to me, because no matter what Putin is or what he's done, you can't tell me he comes anywhere near what even presidents like Obama had done in their time in terms of like the torture and the deportations and the constant, really? I'm so sick of people being like the Russians and the Iranians and these. How are they?
And if you need further,
I don't understand how they're a threat to us.
and if you need further proof as to just how bad our nation is and what we have been doing in aiding and abetting a genocide, because it's still going on and it's going to ramp up even harder before Trump gets into office, because as I
Enhanced
said,
interrogation. Exactly. We tortured some folks.
yeah, that's a
Remember,
good
he said,
one.
yeah, we tortured some. Oh,
folks.
well,
And he's
wait.
sick.
Obama,
Where is it?
Joker.
Joker.
Mentioned Obama.
Yeah, there he
Okay.
is. Oh, bummer. Right
He's a
there.
joker.
He sure is. When the Pope has to come out and make a statement about what's going on in Gaza, that's a very bad sign, because now the Catholics are going to start to question, well, what the hell are we doing over? At least I hope the Catholics do.
The Catholics
the
are in an
Catholics are
interesting
held-
position.
Catholics, as religious as they are compared to evangelicals, Catholics tend to be a lot more sane in their thinking, because there is a disposition of basically following the teachings of Christ. And that to me speaks a lot. So the Pope actually came out and made this statement earlier today.
Molto gravi e dolorose, civili inermi.
Do you want to read it or should I?
You can read it if you want. I don't care.
Unarmed civilians are subjected to
Sono oggetto di
bombing and shooting.
bombardamenti e spari. E questo è
And this is
avvenuto
even happened
persino
inside the parish
all'interno del
complex of the
complesso
Holy Family,
parrocchiale della Santa Famiglia, dove non si sono
where there are no
terroristi,
terrorists, but
ma
families,
famiglie,
children,
bambini,
sick and
persone
disabled
malate
people,
con
nuns,
disabilità, suori. Una mamma
a
e
mother
sua
and her
figlia,
daughter, Miss Nadia
signora
Khalil
Nada
Anton, and her
Khalil
daughter,
Anton,
Samir
e la
Khalil
figlia
Anton,
Samarco Amar Anton, sono stati
were
uccisi
killed and other
e altre
people
persone
injured by
ferite dai
IDF
tiratori
snipers while going
serbi
to the restroom.
mentre andavano in bagno. È stata danneggiata la casa delle
The
suore
convent
di
of the
Madre
Sisters of Mother
Teresa,
Teresa was damaged and their
colpito
generator
il
was
loro
hit.
generatore. Qualcuno dice
They want you to be doing this in
che
Italian accent, but the Pope doesn't have an Italian accent.
Some
He's
say
not
it's a
Italian.
terrorism, it's a war.
He's not
He's
Italian.
Polish. Yes.
No, he's not Polish.
Oh, I thought he was.
He's from South America.
Oh, right. Yeah, but a lot of Italians immigrated to South America.
Oh,
You know?
for the love of God.
This
He's
is
not
why-
Italian.
This is
He's
why
like
Scripture
Argentinian.
states, "The God, let us pray to the Lord peace."
You sound like you're making him sound like a mafia boss.
Well, if you want me to talk like the mafia boss, I'll talk like the mafia boss.
Look, I'm not a
That's
huge
very
fan of the whole,
That's-
church situation.
That's very disturbing what's happening to the innocent Palestinians.
No, I know Germans are in Argentina. I know that. The last pope was actually, no, he was Polish, right? Benedict was Polish. I'm pretty sure that Francis is from Argentina.
It would appear, as far as I
Argentina
can
or
see, that
Venezuela? Argentina.
it would appear from where I stand that the Israelis are going against the family in a very bad way.
Oh, we need to cut them off.
We need to cut off the Israelis.
We do. We need to cut off the Israelis.
They're not taking care of these innocent people.
No, we can't.
That's
do
not
that.
the best. That's not our best.
Let me tell you something about like mafia. There's honor amongst thieves.
There is. There's a code of honor.
Absolutely, there's a code.
Our omerta says that you don't kill innocent women and children.
No, they don't do that. They don't do that.
But the Israelis are doing that.
Oh, well, they have no honor.
No, they don't have any honor.
The Israelis have no honor.
No honor amongst thieves.
No. No.
So I think we ought to cut them off.
I mean, I did criminal defense for a while. I can attest to the fact that there is definitely a code amongst criminals in terms of, especially amongst incarcerated people.
Look what they did to my boy. Look how they massacred my boy. You really do the worst, Brando. You don't get the reference?
No.
Seinfeld.
Oh.
The Moyle.
Oh, right. The Moyle.
The Moyle. Here's my cup. Here's my cup.
The Moyle.
That's a. We've made a decision.
We're going with Kramer.
We're going with Kramer.
But I honestly, it's been
No,
so
but go,
you
guys.
don't understand. This has really been ruined for me, and I feel like you're not respecting that. I feel like Seinfeld's really dead to me.
Well, that's because I do a decent Brando.
He does a decent Brando.
That's very unfortunate what they're doing over there.
But it is. It's terrible.
And no, I'm not saying that Catholics aren't Zionists. Catholics are definitely there are definitely Catholic Zionists, but it's not the same thing as the evangelicals.
No. Well, the evangelicals are on a whole other level. And now you know for sure that they're on a whole other level because Mike Hart Huckabee is now in charge of being the ambassador to Israel.
He wasn't on my Shady bunch,
He
but
should be in there.
yeah, but he's not one that's going anywhere for a while.
No.
That's the thing.
He's gonna
not, and
stay
the
in that
ambassador
position.
to Israel is in a position that's the other thing. That's not a position.
Isn't Huckabee also a minister or something, if I remember correctly?
They're all
I think he
pastors.
is.
Those types are all pastors.
That's all for tax breaks, by the way.
They're
just
all
so you know.
pastors.
In case you
You
don't
create
know
a
what-
church, you get a tax break.
If you didn't know that little secret, hey, listen, Bruce Springsteen, he considers his farm to be a tax break. That's what they use it for. The rich have a lot of advantages. The powerful have a lot of
It's very
advantages.
expensive to be poor.
It really is.
I know. Rich people don't have to pay for anything.
They
get
really
everything
don't. They
as
pass.
comped.
They pass
They
it off.
comp
They
everything.
pass it off to the average person.
Right.
That's what they do. And they've been getting away with it forever. And it's not a party thing. It's a rich thing. That's what we need to understand. This ain't
Yes.
red versus blue. That's dead.
As somebody said, who do I like? Who do I trust more, George W. Bush or Vladimir Putin? Okay. Actually, that's a good question. I will say this, without a doubt, Vladimir Putin is infinitely brighter.
So apparently I need to start training for a boxing match.
Oh my God. So I will say this. If we were going based on who I think is smarter and more capable to handle a situation, Putin for sure.
100%.
For sure. He's actually really bright. My
might
understanding
be-
is that he's an extremely smart person. I know he speaks multiple languages. I know he's extremely bright. W's not. He's really not.
No, listen,
He might be. Look, I'm not going to argue about whatever. Not great. C student through Yale, a lot of coke, a lot of parties. No judgment.
Doing it.
Okay. I'm in no position to judge. But what I'm saying is, if you're asking me who do I trust more to handle shit, I would go with Putin. Putin, I believe, is in charge. Whereas when W was president, I don't think he was
never in charge. But
you had
have you
Cheney and you had Rove.
But, Frank Caliendo always did the best impression. He said, I love the fact that we have a president that looks like he's looking directly into the sun. That's
Yes,
right.
he can paint.
I can paint.
He can.
I can paint.
And I
can
appreciate that.
point my
But
finger.
yeah.
Pull my finger. Come on, Jan, pull my finger.
You do W like the Harold and Kumar Escape from Guantanamo Bay actor did W.
That's right. But I'm doing a good job.
It was good, but it was like very.
And then what he also said was the best part about.
Okay, I do like Harold and Kumar. You know how I told you I don't like.
Yeah, but Cal Penn went completely neo-lib.
I don't care about any of that. What I care about is I do like Harold and Kumar.
Yes, I like it too. It was good.
Well, I'm just saying, I don't always like.
Well, it's
to
all
me,
about the
that's
weed.
not. It's
all about the weed.
It's their and also,
At the
and
end-
I have a Neil Patrick Harris fetish.
He's fun. He's fun.
I love
He's fun
him.
guy.
He can do no wrong to me.
Yeah.
And nobody mocks themselves better
Oh,
than
yeah.
NPH.
Because he's so gay and he tries to come off
Love
as such
him.
a straight Casanova. I
He's
never watched the
adorable.
show, but he's good. How can you not enjoy it?
I
He's
love
just
him.
great.
He really was very straight on How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah, no, I get it.
He was
But
very
good.
believably
That's
straight.
because that, as ironic as it is, but when you do Doogie Howser and you're this supposed prodigy, well, he was an acting prodigy in
Yeah.
many ways.
Yeah,
So
no, he
it's
was
not
around for a long
surprising.
time.
100%. And he is entertaining. So I give
Oh
him
my
that.
God. He can sing, he can dance,
He's
he can
got it all.
act. I know.
Listen,
And he's just so cute. I love him.
it-
So anyway, that was
even
yeah,
the small role that he had in Gone Baby Gone, he was
he
really
was
good.
great.
Really
He was
good.
great. Well, and this to
And
me
that-
is
that-
one
and
of
that-
the biggest things also about Harold and Kumar.
Yeah.
Was also Maloney. Chris Maloney
Yes.
is one of
Oh,
the
yeah.
people in Yeah, the and he was the Klansman.
Yes, of course. Oh, of course. Because that's why I'm Maloney. You see, you want to
I
talk
love
about
Maloney.
the ultimate alpha male.
I
Like,
love
he's
him.
that guy.
He is that
He
guy.
is.
He
And
is.
he's very liberal, like extremely liberal. But he is in New York.
I don't care about his politics. He's
No.
just he's yummy.
No, but he's
I even like the commercial. He does the commercials for what are those things?
well, he's like taking his clothes off now and shit.
Oh no. Well, he does it for it's like a not Ben Gay. It's like he does a commercial for like a
For
heating.
pain. Yeah.
No,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
a heating.
Icy hot. Is it icy hot?
Yeah, but I
think it
think
might
it's a thing that you put on. Like it's a thing. He does an ad for it. It's one of those things, and he's delicious. He's
Well,
delicious.
if I liked men, Maloney would definitely be on that list.
I like
You know that
I loved him in Runaway Bride. He was adorable in Runaway
Maloney, I have no doubt, knows that he's like a gay icon. Like
Is he?
I would imagine.
But
so.
he's so straight.
No, what I'm saying is that gay men like
Do they?
look. Well, he's because he's like he looks like a firefighter.
Yeah,
He
but a
look-
lot. Yeah, but I mean, I don't know that him in particular is a thing for gay men. I mean, but because he's so straight.
He is, and he's a very
Not
good.
that there's anything wrong with.
Not
being
that there's
straight.
anything wrong
Not
with
that
that,
There's anything wrong with being straight.
but he's a really good actor.
He's just.
By the way, I
Yeah.
didn't get a chance to tell you this. So our friend Robert John Burke was actually
Okay.
at Madison Square Garden on Saturday night when Trump showed up with Musk, and he was sitting right there. He was
Oh,
like,
really?
he was right behind Rogan.
That's
I thought that was
so
sad. And I'm
funny.
looking, I'm like,
Well, he
like,
knows
you
enough
could-
people to get good
you
tickets.
should send him a message. Be like, hey, how was that view that you got when you were? Because he's right there.
That's so
he's
funny.
right there. He's like, oh, okay. Because he's like, because Burke is another.
I
man's
don't
man.
watch fighting. I find it's not my thing. I don't.
like
I
fighting.
don't. I think
I
it's
like
just I'm not
It
not
could
a
be
fan.
brutal. Don't get me wrong. But you want to know how we're
Like
gonna,
I don't like things that you would get arrested for doing on the street, but you could get paid a lot of money to do if you're really good
That is
at
the
it.
last
Like those are
remnants
just
of that-
things I'm not.
But that is the remnants of the Roman Empire that still exists, and we're
No,
allowed to be
that's
legal in
football.
society. But yeah, the gridiron. I
Football's
agree with
for
that.
gladiators,
Yes.
especially when they get the head disease.
You mean CT? Yeah, that's
That let me tell
fucking
you something.
terrible.
After I saw the movie Concussion, which is based on the true
Do you
story.
see what's happened to Jim McMahon?
No, I don't want to know because I could see that coming. But
Well,
like,
a lot of the Chicago Bears, the '85 Bears, a lot of them suffer from it. They put
It's
forward
not
the
good.
greatest. I believe I know you don't want to hear this, but they are I believe they're the greatest team of all time.
and who beat them? Who beat them?
The Dolphins.
I know.
Just to remind, it's almost like not only
I will never not remember
not
that.
only are they the
I was
only
there.
undefeated Super Bowl champion,
I was
but the
there.
only team that the '85 Bears, who are considered the only team that is sort of their equal, the only team they lost to was the Miami.
And I was there and it was glorious. And that was the year my dad had gotten me my own season tickets and they were in the end zone because it was cheaper. And this was at the Orange Bowl.
Yeah.
So it was a whole different time. And so I had my own season tickets. I was in high school and I went with a friend. It was insane, that game. It was so awesome.
Not surprising, Josie. I would definitely say that this is, if there is one,
They're all
group,
friends.
Trump is very friendly with the Saudis. That's a fact. That's never
They're-
changed. That
They're
was the
all
one thing.
rich
The-
people together in their own little
And the one
oligarchy
thing-
group.
And the one thing that you could have busted Trump on that could have stuck was his violation of the Emoluments Clause. That's a real law that he broke, but they all break it. And that's why no one goes down. And that's why Wasserman Schultz is as brazen as she is, because she's like, hey, if I'm going down, you're all coming with me. I ain't falling for you. That's how they look at it. They're like, it's plausible deniability. If I'm guilty, you're all guilty. That's it. That's how it works. And so for as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty channel. Any amount of support that you can provide is tremendously appreciated.
Yes, it is. And you can scroll our people because I've updated it.
So we
have a new $10 patron.
ooh, we like that.
So
and you can
when
always
that
update.
comes, I do. Look, there's definitely times when I don't delete people that go away. That does happen, but I do my best to add.
So we're
people
all
that-
up to date right now.
We are up to date
Okay.
right now. This is up to date, and yeah, this is current.
So we do have a new
Daniel
Daniel Venters.
Venters.
Shout out to Daniel. Thank you so much for your support. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, our select four, Connect Four,
The
Guy
Fab
Iverson,
Four. It's
Catherine
our
Glass,
Fab Four
Carola Harrington,
people.
and Collis the Unforgettable. You are unforgettable. Oh, you're totally unforgettable. Really great. And so Thursday night,
Why am I looking at Mika Brzezinski?
you'll see in a minute. I'll
Okay.
explain. I'll explain. This can be fun.
Because I don't care for her.
Colin, cue up the tweet.
I wish we could
are the,
replace them with the ones from Don't Look Up with
cue up the
Tyler Perry and
Cue
Kate
up
Blanchett.
the image that. Oh, okay. I see it. Trump Truth. All right, I got it.
Yeah, it's right there.
And you guys are going to get. Well, I'm not going to. You'll see.
When you do things that way, just so you're aware,
Yeah.
we can't share screen. When
No, I
you do
understand.
things, okay.
Well, yeah, that's fine. I don't mind that. That's not a problem. And remember, guys, you can also go over to Cash App if you are so inclined to support our cause and would like to contribute, but you don't want to go through having to go through Google, which is going to take a portion, a cut of the action.
If you want to just send us a nice little donation,
Have you
it's
checked-
always
have you checked
appreciated.
Cash App, by the way?
Trust me, I get a little ding if anything comes through Cash App. It almost never happens.
All right. Well,
And
we
it
still got to put
happens-
it out there. Anyway.
The only time it really happens is the Google money that comes through.
Yes. And so Thursday night, we are having a very big show. So you guys are definitely going to want to
Big.
Huge, bigly
Bigly show.
really incredible show on Thursday. So we are going to have a 2-person panel. It's going to be fun. We are going to have CanCon, who is a local friend. You see, if I was up there already, he would have been perfect to come invite into the studio. We'll do that in the future to have, you know,
I'd have him come here. Sure. Yeah, well, we are set up for that now.
So we are going to have CanCon, and we're going to have friend of the show, Angela McArdle, chair of the Libertarian Party. They are going to come on and talk about what they like so far about Trump, what they don't like, the impact of the Libertarian Party, and especially right now with, you know, World
Is
War.
CanCon libertarian?
Yes, very much so.
No. I know he's little L libertarian, but like, is he? I mean, I know
No,
he's
he's-
just.
he's
I didn't
Republican.
realize he was party affiliated.
I think he's in the GOP. I think. I could be wrong. But
Okay.
he'll confirm.
That's what I'm saying. I thought he
He
was,
supports Trump like that much.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I didn't think he's a libertarian. That's why I'm saying
We'll see.
he might be a little L libertarian.
But that's not all, guys. But that's not all. We're also going to have a very special guest. We are going to
I don't
have
know.
none other than the Queen Bee herself. Nancy Pelosi is going to grace our show.
Okay.
And that will be fun.
That will be fun. And
And-
talk about the fact that she's running again.
Oh, 20 times a charm. Maybe you'll get it right.
She's
this
like
time around.
83. How old is
84.
she? She's 84.
Which means that she will be 85, I believe, or 86 when the election happens, which means she will be in office, guys, at least until she's 88. If she makes it that, I mean, she probably will. I mean, she
She's in
drinks-
decent shape.
She is. She probably drinks Tiger
First,
blood. or
she
God
drinks,
knows what.
she eats Jenny's ice cream.
Have you ever had that ice cream?
It's good.
I'm sure it is.
It is really good.
Listen, San Francisco rich, they get.
But
the
I
best
mean,
of everything.
it's well now it's in
Yeah.
it's in all grocery stores. It wasn't always. You know where they had it when they didn't have it in grocery stores yet. You know that really cool candy store in Wilton Manors that I like, that candy store on the main Wilton Manors.
Well, if we really want to bury our country, our friend in the north.
Do you know what I'm talking about? That candy store in Wilton Manors that I like, where I get the licorice.
Yes,
They have a freezer in there with the Jenny's ice cream.
I'm not. Well, that's what matters. I'm not surprised. And so, yes. So Thursday night.
Insider trading, man, keeps
Yeah.
you young.
So
How come it doesn't work for Debbie
because she's just as ugly inside as she is outside.
and Nancy Pelosi isn't?
I think Nancy Pelosi is actually liked by a lot of people. Debbie's not. That's the difference.
You mean on a personal level?
talking about-
So like people personally, like you think people like in her life like Nancy Pelosi, like people like to be around her.
For example, when I was
Like she might be warm
attempting-
to other people.
When I've gone to some of the Democratic Party conventions in the state, particularly the ones that are in Orlando, when you bring in the real bougie, you know, high-end libs that live in like Tampa Bay and Sarasota and places like that, and they show up. I
and
remember-
Cory Booker is your
I
speaker.
remember one of the. Remember when Pelosi was walking out of the West Wing and she had on the glasses with the big, you know, coat on, the black. You don't remember that image?
No.
Anyway, they created like a meme image of her, and they were wearing it as like a lapel on their jacket. Like they love.
Well, I told you, remember Linda Gallen had that hand painted shirt with the
Yeah.
picture of Nancy Pelosi
Yeah, they
doing
love-
the clap. Remember?
Yeah,
And
They love that
Oh
shit.
yeah, but so many of those people are like really dying off. There's nobody, but so will she. Like it's not like she's gonna have like a young fan club.
going to be around for a while. You could just rest assured.
So the last thing we're going to cover tonight and we're going to cover it because
I don't know about
it's just
this.
too funny.
What
not
is
to
this?
do this.
Well, you know what I really wanted to talk about, which we are going to have to get into at some point, is that House Resolution 9495.
We should save that for Thursday then.
And if you guys don't know what's going on with that, it's important.
House Resolution 9495, which is basically to give full power to the president to basically say that I totally don't like these people.
It's basically going to
It's all
allow,
about getting rid of the Free Palestine movement.
it's
That's
going
the
to
whole
basically screw over a whole bunch of nonprofits and organizations that are human rights organizations. It's basically creating an enemy. Remember how they created the term enemy combatant? So if you label somebody an enemy combatant, they no longer have to have due process. Well, they're basically coming up with a way for organizations to be labeled a certain way so they no longer get to be qualified as organizations.
And it shouldn't surprise anybody that Wasserman Schultz is one of the leading Democrats on this bill.
We'll get, see, that's what I want. We need to go over it and show the list and pull up the article and all that
no,
stuff.
we'll cover that Thursday night. So keep that column for Thursday.
Yeah,
for,
we'll just do that on
for
Thursday.
McCardle and CanCon. We'll talk about that. That'll definitely be a key talking point. McCardle's actually sent us some info about things that she wants to talk about as well.
Well, because we might not have time to talk about it with them, and that's fine. We could do it on our own, but we need to talk about it because it's important.
Yep. And so here's where we will conclude this evening. So remember, everybody was saying how Trump is Hitler, and if he gets in again, the country's over, and all of this wonderful stuff. Well, as it turns out, one of the loudest, maybe the loudest of them all, was Morning Joe Scarborough, and Mika Brzezinski. They really have a lot to say about Donald Trump and how evil and terrible he is.
Maybe he'll leave.
But apparently today that wasn't the case. This morning, they had something to say regarding visiting Mar-a-Lago over the weekend.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Last Thursday, we expressed our own concerns on this broadcast and even said we would appreciate the opportunity to speak with the president-elect himself. On Friday, we were given the opportunity to do just that. Joe and I went to Mar-a-Lago to meet personally with President-elect Trump. It was the first time we have seen him in 7 years.
Now, we talked about a lot of issues, including abortion, mass deportation, threats of political retribution against political opponents, and media outlets. We talked about that a good bit.
So essentially, the reason you went on this little soiree down to Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida, is because you wanted to see if the president-elect is going to basically totally fire your asses. Is that the reason you went down there?
With your little tails between your legs.
Little tails between your legs.
Pathetic.
Corporate media. Let me know the last time that Joe Scarborough or Mika Brzezinski ever talked about a living wage or single-payer healthcare on their show. Probably never. That would be my guess. I would say they've never, ever mentioned it before. And if they did, it was in the context.
I can't even look at them and not
are.
think of Don't Look Up. I can't.
Well, that's who they were based on.
Well, especially her, but it's just, that's how ridiculous these two are to me. These two are like Muppets, like Statler and Waldorf, but a male-female version. Like they're Muppets. They're just talking head white Muppets.
You know what this is the equivalent of, Colin? See if you could find that photo of Trump and Romney, if you know which one I'm talking about. That was always the best. We'll continue.
And it's going to come as no surprise to anybody who watches this show, has watched it over the past year or over the past decade, that we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of issues, and we told him so.
What we did agree on was to restart communications. My father often spoke with world leaders with whom he and the United States profoundly disagreed. That's a task shared by reporters and commentators alike. We had not spoken to President Trump since March of 2020, other than a personal call Joe made to Trump on the morning after the attempt on his life in Butler, Pennsylvania. In this meeting, President Trump was cheerful, he was upbeat, he seemed interested in finding common ground with Democrats on some of the most divisive issues. And for those asking,
what issues? Which issues?
Well, because I have a feeling, it's Mika, right?
Yes.
I have a feeling, Mika, that the issues, your issues and my issues are not the same issues.
Probably not.
So I'm going to say what the pressing issues are. Like, that's what I'm saying. If you don't say what those issues are, I'm going to assume that they're not my issues.
Yeah.
I like.
Finish it up.
Why we would go speak to the president-elect during such fraught times, especially between us. I guess I would ask back, why wouldn't we?
Okay, so when I see this mea culpa being espoused, this is what I think of. This is what I remember, and I think you do too. Yeah. Remember how Romney would bash Trump left and right and say how the party is finished if we nominate him and this and that. And then almost immediately after the election is over and Trump wins, and this is basically Romney showing up to dinner with Trump with his tail between his legs.
The most pitiful was Ted Cruz, though.
Yes. Well, Ted Cruz,
the most pitiful of all the
it.
fall in line bootlickers is Ted Cruz. All right. So we have this article, and this is what I wanted to.
We're not done yet.
We're not done yet.
We're not done yet.
What are we not done with?
We're not done.
Okay.
You didn't think that the president-elect didn't have a response to this today? That he didn't respond in kind
to
what these two knuckleheads had to say? The president-elect had something to say.
Okay, so let's see it. Where is it?
Oh, you guys are going to get a kick out of this one. This morning, Morning Joe and Mika, who owe their careers to me, went on their show and claimed to have met with me. They made it sound like we had a summit. The truth is, Joe begged to meet with me after our big win. When I finally agreed, he approached me like a scolded dog.
So funny. I said tail between their legs.
He should consider himself lucky that I didn't have him thrown out of beautiful Mar-a-Lago.
Oh, my God.
I can't read all of it, Colin. I need the rest of it.
Why? You can't fit it on the thing, huh? It might not be in the picture.
Colin, cue it up, however you got to do it.
He heard you. Don't talk like that to him.
Oh, my fault. I didn't realize the scroll was cutting it off. I apologize.
I don't know what it is.
Mika was charming as usual. The fact that he stuck that in there right at his wife. Oh man. It's almost like saying, oh, and I'm totally going to take your wife at the same time. That is so like.
And I look at people like Joe. He is so like cucked.
But that's how Trump.
He's so cucked.
But that's how Trump is going to get back at people. He is just going to embarrass the shit out of them.
Good.
That's Trump's way of revenge. Like he is going to make them the laughing stock of social media.
Those two to me are just, they're not serious. Like, do people actually watch them and think that that's news? Like, they're really like Muppets. They're not even they're ridiculous.
Well, who are they catering to?
The same people that watch The View.
Exactly. It's like a circle jerk of viewership.
Right. And that's why they are all so shocked that they couldn't win an election. Yeah, it's because there's not that many of you. You're in a very small echo chamber.
Remember when Joe was going around saying that old Joe was as sharp as a tack, as good as ever, totally fine, no problem.
But so did Kamala.
They
were all talking about how he was just so sharp and everything was great until, Clooney writes a letter. And then all of a sudden now we have to, get Kamala in there.
The party is definitely in a very bad way.
I know. It pleases me. It pleases me. But good. They need to be. They're horrible. They don't represent, but like a very small group of elitist fucks. And any party that only represents something that's so niche, it's like, you need to go away.
The fact that he just the fact that he felt the need to needle him by complimenting his wife.
Oh Love it. He really is good at it. So guys, we're going to just do this very quickly because we have the article here. This is the bill I'm talking about. And I just want everyone to be aware of what this is. And obviously the Republicans are all going to kind of get in line for it. Were there any of them that didn't? Like, I wonder if Thomas Massey didn't vote for it.
I don't believe so.
I don't know. But
it didn't pass.
No, it didn't pass, but they're going to try to get it through again. This isn't going away, is my point. This is why it's important for people to understand this. And there's like, so it's like, how many of them voted for it? Over 50 House Democrats. So that's, how many shy are they? 256. All right. So they're only shy 14 votes. They'll end up getting this through at some point. Like, this isn't going to be,
so it looks like maybe a dozen or so Republicans didn't vote for it. Obviously, Thomas Massey, of course,
52 Democrats voted with it and 144 opposed it. Now, not surprising, our Congresswoman is all with that. So this bill
Oh, excuse me. One Republican joined the. Well, we all know who that. And of course, they don't want to say his name because I know he's.
So it had to be Thomas Massey. Yeah. Okay. The bill would give secretaries of the United States Treasury the power to designate nonprofit organizations as terrorist supporting, and I'm putting that in quotes, and thus strip those groups of their tax exempt status. The bill's passage would apply the amendments made in it to taxable years after its enactment, including those of the incoming Trump administration. I mean, you guys, this is really, yeah, you could scroll up. I don't need to read the whole thing, but this is really scary. It's basically the equivalent of what I said before, designating people as enemy combatants to take away their rights. This is the same equivalent. So they're going to be able to use this and go after groups that are Arab groups, Muslim groups, and truthfully, any groups. They could go after Jewish Voice for Peace.
In a blog post
They
urging
can go after
members
all
of
these
Congress to kill the bill, Kia Hamadanchi, ACLU Senior Policy Counsel, said, the freedom to dissent without fear of government retribution is a vital part of any well-functioning democracy, which is why Congress must block H.R. 9495 before it's too late. If the Israel lobby, if
this is not good,
Miriam
like they
Abelson,
can get this through, it's really not good. So I just want people to be aware of this. And I do urge people to reach out. It's like, on the one hand, I want to encourage people to reach out and call your representatives, but on the other hand, I know it doesn't make a bit of difference. So I just want people to know that this is going on out there. And if you have an opportunity to educate somebody about this so that they know that this is going on, this is scary.
It is. It should be. And this is also part of the reason why, if there was ever really any type of contingency of the Democratic Party in this area to complain to regarding how much they've destroyed this party and that there was anyone to really get to, that's the thing about Wasserman Schultz. There really isn't anyone to go to.
The problem is that, quite honestly, this is the kind of thing that could have gotten in under Biden. It wouldn't matter.
That's why they tried to do it right now.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, this would get through. They have the votes. They're really only a handful shy.
Well, even if all but one GOPer does, it's just a question of how many more Democrats they have to pick off to get it done.
Exactly.
And they will.
They will.
You think they can't get 14 or 15 more Democrats to do it? Of course they can.
They'll offer them something really nice. They'll make them an offer they can't refuse.
Well, make them an offer.
But this is very, here, I'm going to do it. I can do it myself, I think. Wait, how do we do it?
What are you trying to do?
I want to scroll it, but, oh, it's here. Hold on. Wait, hold on. How do I do it? I want to do, oh, he's doing it. All right. I just want to see the list. Like, if you scroll down to the list. Yeah, I'm sorry. There it is. So these are.
Oh, Colin Allred, you know, the guy that they wasted so much money to try to beat Ted Cruz in Texas.
Just so people are aware, these are the Democrats that supported this idea of essentially censoring organizations, taking away their tax exempt status. You know what? You want to do that? Then I want you to take it away from every church and synagogue and every organization like that.
Isn't it amazing how Sharice Davids was a DEI hire, and that is what she is.
So none of these are surprising. But I do
Gottheimer.
Who was the douchebag that just stood up in front of Congress with his alternate cabinet his dark shadow cabinet that he presented, because Kathy Castor was one of the people he listed for something.
I don't remember. I didn't see.
It was, it's absurd. Steny Hoyer. I mean, this is very usual. Josh Gottheimer.
There's also a lot of similar. There's also a theme with a number of the people on this list.
Yeah, well, it's the Israel lobby people. It's the most adamant Israel lobby people.
There's the little man.
Right, he is a little man. He is a very little man. Jared Moskowitz.
Of course, Frank Pallone's on the list. Chris Pappas, of course, is on the list. Marie Gluestenkamp-Perez, of course, is on the list. Adam Schiff-for-Brains is on the list. Not surprising.
I'm sure Richie Torres.
Half of these representatives.
Alyssa Slotkin just
half
became
of the
senator.
Representatives on this list. I'm going to count them off.
Adam Schiff.
Scroll to the top, Colin, real quick, please. I'm going to count. I'm going to read them off to you guys.
Okay.
Okay. Dingell. Keep going. Golden, Frankel, Gottheimer, Harder, Hoyer. Wait, no, not Hoyer. Marcy Kupter, Greg Landsman, Mike Levin, Jared Moskowitz, Adam Schiff, Brad Schneider, Hillary Schulten, Kim Schreier, Brad Sherman, Alyssa Slotkin, Eric Sorensen. Keep going.
Who else
keep
are you
going.
looking for? Richie Torres.
And Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So almost half this list is Jewish. You are continuing to perpetuate this. And did I say Adam Schiff? I think I
You did.
Okay. So this is continuing to perpetuate the
loathe-
anti-Semitic stereotype, which only comes to fruition because they are proving that there is no difference between Zionism and Judaism. And that is on them. Wasserman Schultz just happens to be maybe the most disgusting, along with Schiff and Josh Gottheimer. But they are particularly disgusting.
And yet I sit there and you know who disgusts me the most?
Richie Torres.
Richie Torres. I cannot. That man disgusts me.
Well, they're going to try. I think what's going to happen is that the Working Families Party is going to petition Jamal Bowman to run against Torres in a primary. And I could see that.
That would be great.
I think that would happen. Because I think Bowman doesn't want to go away, and he's in New York City, so I could see a case where it would just make more sense.
Because Richie Torres, to me, is just, he represents the worst. Like, that's the worst. It's just terrible.
And I think Bowman would beat him. I do. I think that Bowman, there would be sort of like this, oh shit, I can't believe we,
To me, it will 1,000% come down to the demographics of that district and the overlay between that and the Zionist lobby.
By the way, guys, you want to know why you want to see Jamal Bowman
Do you see
run?
how you didn't let me finish? Do you see what I'm saying? That's what's going to make the difference, is what the demographics are and how Zionist they are in that district as to whether or not Jamal Bowman can win, because that will be what this comes down to, as to between those two people.
It's actually a very Black and Hispanic district. It's not the district that he had.
If it's
been
not
running
a Zionist,
against.
it's not a Zionist district, but Richie Torres definitely has a lot of Zios in his support group.
The Zionist portion of the congressional district is in an area called Riverdale, which is the northernmost part of the Bronx. This is an extremely affluent Jewish area, and it has been for at least 100 years, probably longer than that. Again, this is the thing about the affluent Jewish community. They have money and they vote, and they're active. They are involved in politics. They don't just show up at the ballot box. Like, they're involved with this stuff on a regular basis.
There is a disproportionate amount of Jewish people in Congress when you talk about it, percentage of population.
Yes.
Right. Like, it's disproportionately large. So, and by the way, the problem with that assessment, what you're doing, is there's Jewish Republicans.
Sure. I agree with that.
So, well, that's not an agree or disagree. That's just a fact. There's
it's
Jewish
true.
Republicans. I mean, on the list of people that voted for that legislation.
However, do you know what percentage of Jews voted for Kamala to Trump?
No.
84% of Jews voted for Kamala Harris. That was interesting.
Yeah, but what's the percentage of Jews that normally vote for the Democrat? It's probably higher than that.
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, that's the only number that matters, is what was it in proportionate to other Jewish people.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, to other candidates. What is that number normally? Because I would bet it's pretty high. Most Jews traditionally have voted Democrat.
And you know what, Ray J? I'll take him over Richie Torres.
There's
twice
that.
on Sunday.
Yeah, there's that.
And the other reason you're
That's
going
a
to
big
want to
deal.
see this primary happen, you want to know the real reason you want to see it happen? Because then AOC is going to have no choice but to plant her flag in that race, because everyone is going to be looking at her and asking her to make a stand.
She won't. She'll get out of it. She won't. She won't. She won't get involved.
I don't agree.
She won't get involved. She will not take a stand in that race. You want to make a bet on it? We're 2 steps ahead because we're already assuming there is a race. So whether or not that even happens.
Well, that's why I want to see it happen. I want to see her not get involved.
She will not get involved in that race.
Throw Jamal under the bus twice.
She won't do anything. No, she won't come out for Richie Torres. She will not get involved in that race.
That's probably true.
You're like, there's no way.
That's right. They knew nothing was going to change. And you know what? It didn't. So there you go.
What were we expecting to change?
I guess that's the reason why we do this show, right? We're trying to form some.
Jews traditionally do vote Democrat. Like growing up my whole life, for the most part, there were some along class lines and some along Better for Israel lines that did tend to vote Republican. And that has gotten larger, but it's still, I would think that most Jewish, I would see yeah. It's just the way it makes sense.
It's going to be a very interesting couple of months before Trump is officially inaugurated.
There's going to be so much to talk about, but I do think most of his people will get confirmed. I do. I think the vast majority of people will get confirmed.
There'll be a sacrificial lamb, and the sacrificial lamb is likely going to be Matt Gaetz. But we'll see. We'll see.
I don't know. That's the kind of thing. Here's the thing about that, right? So you're talking about the attorney general position, right?
Mm.
A lot of deals and offers can be made to a lot of people for friends and family in high places. And a lot of that can be negotiated for a confirmation vote. So when you're talking about putting somebody in the play in the attorney general's office, Matt Gaetz isn't the only person that has like legal issues that they're not wanting to deal with. There's a lot of people like that. And people like him and Trump go and offer those people deals for their friends and their family. That's how you get confirmation votes. So he wouldn't necessarily get confirmed for something else, but that's a very interesting position.
The one thing we can all tip our hats to, we can all agree on as we conclude this evening, is that at the very least, Rick Scott will not be the Senate Majority Leader. And I think we can all agree that that's a good thing.
Is it? Yes.
It's a great
That's
thing.
the best thing.
Smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things that we ask you to do. We appreciate you and love you all. We'll see
Bye,
you
guys.
Thursday.